All right, we'll go again. All right, good evening. I will go ahead and call this May 22nd school board. I'm India Johnson, Vice President. I'm sitting in for Sue Flynn. She's out today. So the first thing, could we all have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. And could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Williams, will you be willing to read the mission statement this evening? Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So our first exhibit for tonight is the public hearing of instructional support and program. And Mr. Conley will be our point of contact on this. Would you like me to read it?
Just declare that open.
Okay. So I'm going to declare this open
And then ask if any public
and for public hearing, and any public comments on this regarding the instructional support program, which is allowed under the Iowa Code Section 257.18 through 257.27. In summary, the ISL provides additional funding for a budget year and is limited to an amount not exceeding 10% of the regular program district cost. Certified enrollment times the district cost per pupil. Monies received under the instructional support program may be used for any general fund purposes, except they are not to supplement funds and authorized to be received under dropout prevention, talented and gifted, the physical plant and equipment fund levy, and the management fund levy to cover any deficiencies in funding for special education services. The instructional support program will be funded by the instructional support state aid, if available, and instructional support property tax to be levied annually upon the taxable property within the school district. So this is a, any comments? All right, we'll go ahead and close the motion to close, please.
So move.
Astor and Jesse? Yep. And vote. This is a roll call? Okay. Lyle?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Astor?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
All right, India. Public hearing closed. Vote 7-0. All right. Next item, Exhibit B, would be Board Celebration, School and Community Relations, ISPRA Awards. This would be Ockley and Katrina. If you'd like to discuss this, this is exciting. This is for informational only, but background is congratulations to the School and Community Relations Department for winning 29 awards from the Iowa School Public Relations Association. It was, Thursday? April 13th, the Iowa School Public Relations Association, ISPRA, held an award banquet in conjunction with its spring conference in Des Moines. And this is where the Waterloo Community School District was honored with 29 awards. And I'll let Ms. Ockley tell us more, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Katrina and Anna, go ahead and come on up. And you can stand here with me. And Katrina and Anna will both say a couple of words. So As you know, this is my second year with the school district in this role, and it's really been an honor and a privilege to work not only on behalf of Waterloo Schools for our students, our families, our community, and our staff, but also it's been an honor to work alongside Katrina, Anna, Sandy, Karen, Christian, Katie, and my first year, Linda, as well. And so these awards, it's always uncomfortable because these awards are really a representation of all of the amazing work that happens behind the scenes, and the awards are just a small fraction of what actually the team has done over the course of the last year. So I'm going to say just a little bit more about that, but I invited Katrina and Anna to say a few words if they'd like to, because really I want their voices to be heard. Katie wasn't able to attend tonight, but she shared some words with me that she wanted me to read. So I'll start with Katie Hansen. Katie is our content writer. And just to give you a sense of the volume of work that we're talking about in terms of just the content writing. So these are rough estimates looking over the course of the year together. More than 25 press releases, 35 newsletters, somewhere around 150 to 175 news and article blurbs, 30 full articles, 50 Instagram posts, 40 videos, 22 LinkedIn articles, and over 100 LinkedIn posts. So Katie says, at the core of my storytelling is a search for connection to a community I call home, connection to feeling like a kid again, and connection with the incredible people and mentors here at Waterloo Schools. This past year has been a whirlwind of learning, and I've been inspired by countless remarkable students, volunteers, and staff members. During my first months with the district, Alyssa, IMC integrationist at West High, was kind enough to open up West's beautiful library for me to explore and share with our Waterloo Community School District readers. Seeing the impact of holding space for others like Alyssa, leading with empathy and love like Lincoln Principal Tammy Phillips, or kickstarting curiosities like cybersecurity instructor Kyle Coolers, so many stories and people from the past year have reminded both our readers and me of the impact one person can make on the world around them. Thankfully, it only takes a handful of these one-of-a-kind people to help our students build their own whispers of potential into a roar. Later this June, I am stepping away from Waterloo Schools to begin my master's degree in library and information sciences with the University of Iowa, largely inspired by my short time in the West High Library. Through this program, I hope to learn how to impact others the way so many here at Waterloo Schools have impacted me. The stories our team has told this year have helped inspire folks across the Cedar Valley, across the country, and even across the world. It's been my sincere pleasure to share updates from alumni who are scuba instructors in Bonaire, dancers in New York City, and wrestling Hall of Famers right here in Waterloo. Thank you, Waterloo Schools, for also holding space for me this past year, allowing me to learn and grow alongside each of these stories, and offering a constant reminder of the power small acts of kindness can hold. So that's Katie Hansen, content writer. And Anna Dorsey is going to speak next. So Anna joined us last spring, and I don't think she had any clue what she was getting herself into. Anna, at the time that she applied for this position, was actually working at Menards. What shift were you working?
Morning stock,
The morning stock. What hours were those?
like 6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m. And when I saw her portfolio, I thought, holy buckets. There is absolutely nothing wrong with working at Menards, but just the skill and her expertise when it comes to this particular work needed to be utilized. And so I was really thrilled to onboard Anna. And Anna has created well over 750 graphics in the year that she's been here. I'll share a little bit more about the work she's done for our buildings and their logos. 3 campaign logos, 10 large-scale brochures, more than 40 posters, more than 85 certificates, revamping our style branding guide, more than 100 ads for newspapers, swag boxes, more than 200 social media graphics, countless programs, guides, text-heavy documents, mailers, building-level supports, and also supervised and helped to mentor a WCC graphic designer this spring. And really, I leaned on Anna to just take that role. I absolutely believe in being a leader of leaders. And certainly with Katrina, Anna, and Katie, these are future leaders, and it's part of my role to just keep empowering them. So I'll let you hear from Anna.
I am not a public speaker. I'm usually behind a screen. So I wrote down what I'm going to say. My name is Anna Dorsey, and I am Waterloo proud to say that I'm the graphic designer for Waterloo Schools. I've been in this position for just over 1 year, and I'm truly humbled by the amount of amazing projects I've had the opportunity to work on with our team. All 19 of our schools now have revamped logos with branded items such as tablecloths, banners, and note cards to match. We've spent hours creating our brand and spreading that across all of our marketing materials. Swag boxes filled with stickers, mugs, notebooks, and other goodies have piqued the interest of our staff. Our suite of apparel is being worn throughout our community, and honestly, I've had to fight the urge to walk up to strangers in Target and say, "Hey, I made that. Thanks for wearing that." As amazing as those big projects are, though, the ones that are closest to my heart include those like our My Bold Is posters. Having the honor to highlight a student or staff member and what makes them bold is something that our team does not take on lightly. There are so many amazing stories to tell. I'm nothing short of grateful and blessed to have been given the opportunity to create, grow, and tell our district's stories. There's no looking back to enjoy the view because we have so much more up our sleeves. Thank you, board members and district leadership, for giving me the ability to truly say that I love my job. My name is Anna, and my bold is telling the stories of Waterloo Schools through visual graphics.
Thank you, Anna. And just to give you an impression, so our intern was Amina, and she sent an email, CC'd me on it, and again, keeping the context in mind that Anna really was the one who primarily supported Amina through her internship with us. Amina says, "I would like to thank you guys again for having me as an intern this semester. I've learned a lot and enjoyed being in a calm and productive work environment. I'm honestly a bit sad to be finishing, so if you ever need help," and we will because Anna's going on maternity leave, "if you ever need help again, I'd be more than happy to assist. It's inspiring to witness strong and independent women being the reason a community gets to see what it does. You guys did an amazing job with Be Bold and the things you will continue to do." I appreciated the fact that she mentioned that we're a team of independent thinkers, strong independent thinkers, and at the end of the day, we're collaborative and we work together. And the level of work that happens behind the scenes just simply doesn't happen without that level of collaboration. And an inherent ability to be really self-sufficient when the time calls for it. Some of the things that we do behind the scenes around crisis communication, urgent communication, that's the stuff that really people don't see. They see the bold, but they don't see a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes. And the next person, Katrina, is really my right-hand person when it comes to that. Over the course of the last couple of years, in fact, I think to myself very often, Katrina could be doing my job. Katrina is capable and skilled enough and experienced enough to be doing this work, to be in my role. She doesn't want that. But I can't tell you the number of times that I lean on the team when certain things need to be done in a really time-sensitive and urgent manner, and in a way that requires confidentiality. So again, Katrina, I can't say enough things about her, but absolutely one of those independent, strong, powerful women who I'm pleased and honored to work with. So Katrina.
I didn't get to write stuff before I came up, so I will just speak from the heart. So I get to tell the stories. I'm the storyteller. I get to go out and do the Be Bold interviews, take the photos, and this year it's not just a theme. Every year we try and have a theme. This year it is a passion, and you can tell because every school wanted to one-up it themselves. I would show up and they didn't really know what they wanted to do at first, and they got to the point where by the end they already had their poses down. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to be on a poster. Can you put this little section in? And I would always go in with an idea in mind of how to start the interview and get to the heart of what they wanted. And then you just start talking to somebody and you see the light in their eyes and you see what passion really drives them. And that's what led the Be Bold stories that went into the posters. And I love that we weren't able to, or that we used the photos for more than just social media, but it got turned into posters. It got turned into the banners that you saw on the website, used in brochures. So we were able to use the work in many ways. And it just brought me joy, and being able to see stories that made kids cry when they talked to me about how deep their love was for their parents and how they got them to where they are and made them bold in their choices. And then you go down to Kendall at Lincoln Elementary, and this little girl wants to be a princess. And I thought, oh, this story has nowhere to go. I'm like, I'm going to tell it because that's what she wanted to do. And she wanted to jump in the air, and that was the post she did. And gosh darn it, that post got 50,000 views, and it's a poster, and people loved her. And so it's not just the heartwarming, pull at the heartstrings stories that we tell, but it's also the joy that's sprinkled throughout. And I think we need to have that. And we can tell from our Facebook views that people really enjoy the deep stories, the fun, and just telling the heart and showing that Waterloo Schools is a positive place to be, and we're growing, and we are Waterloo proud.
So the emotional storytelling is an easy part of what we do to focus on, but there's a lot of information that we push out as well. There are two ways to communicate. You pull people into a story and you push information out. And the team does both of those things incredibly well. Katrina, the stats are just phenomenal in terms of Facebook. 1,117,432 Facebook pages reached with posts, over 500 Facebook posts, an average of 32,000 Twitter impressions per month. We featured every building equitably with our Be Bold feature interviews and photos averaging around 75 edited photos per building. So for every one of those 75 edited photos, there are a good 50 to 100 photos that aren't edited. Katrina estimated about 1,500 photos just for Be Bold alone. Extra event photos averaged around 250 photos per month, about 2,500 edited photos, and then 35 Be Bold awards. I would say, in sort of a final note, one of the things that's really critical about some of the work that we do is create a balancing act between telling the most authentic, genuine stories about adversity, about resilience that our students face, that our families face, that our staff face, and doing it in a way that's sensitive, in a way that follows all of the laws, in a way that illustrates the true nature of what it means to be in public education, and get people excited about public education every single day of the week. So it's a balancing act that takes a lot of finessing. A lot of the things that Katrina will maybe write for a Facebook post, she'll send my way and go, is this okay? When we're talking about perhaps a student with an IEP who we've gotten permission to include in the information as an example, right? Is this okay? Does this read okay? Are we crossing any lines? So that kind of conversation happens all the time. So again, I can't really say enough about these folks, but we're not going to be here all night. But help me in thanking Katrina and Anna and the rest of the team for all the work that they do on behalf of Waterloo Schools.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that, Akwi. Your team is amazing. I love seeing the T-shirts; those are really cool, and the new logo with the big bold is really incredible. So, thank you for that. Akwi, don't go too far. Exhibit C is which is also the presentation of the school community relations Be Bold 3-year communication strategy. So for this one, this is just the comprehensive campaign utilizing the traditional digital live media that defines bold through the voices of our staff and students, illuminates evidence of how courageous, ambitious, outside-the-box thinking leads to students' engagement and achievement in our district, and it inspires trust and pride in Waterloo schools. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, this is the first time I've actually presented to the board in a couple of years that I've been here around just strategy, vision, and the why behind the work. So I'm going to be really conscientious of the time, but I also want to be as thorough as I possibly can be. So when I started last year, this was what we were looking at in terms of a strategic plan. We're familiar with this document, this version of the document, PACE, focusing on people, achievement, community, and environment. And I was tasked with coming up with a communication strategy that would illuminate these aspects of the strategic plan, and also create a sense of not what I'm working on as a school district and our leaders in the school district, but what we're working towards. So how do we move from a school district of leaders that's thinking about what I'm working on to what we're working towards? And obviously what we're working towards collectively, enrollment, achievement, recruitment, and retention. And so the communication strategies that I started outlining last year and designing last year really were focused on these 3 specific goals. When I started, as we often feel when we start a new position, it feels like you're maybe walking into this, right? Like, I have no idea what kind of situation I'm going to walk into. And what I discovered was that this is essentially the list of responsibilities that the School and Community Relations Department has. Volunteer program, media, everything from media relations to protocols, processes for how we tell stories, platforms for those stories to be disseminated, social media strategy, communication to families, what is considered in the journalism industry soft and hard news stories, brand identity, crisis communication, internal communication, and live events. That's a long list of all of the things that the School and Community Relations Department is responsible for. It's easy some days to feel like this, right? However, I walked into a situation, into a department, and into a school district that had quite a lot of processes already very healthily in place. And it didn't feel so much as the laundry basket on the left as it did a nice folded pile on the right. And it was just up to me to figure out how to more effectively and strategically utilize the processes that were already in place to more effectively tell our stories, both again in terms of telling stories and then pulling in with stories and telling the important information of our district. So where to start? I decided to break things down into 3 phases, and recognizing that really the focus with any communications team is on utilizing 3 different styles of media. So traditional media includes TV, newspaper, radio, mail. And then live media, events, stunts, and speeches, and then digital media, website, videos, e-newsletters, and social media. So any high-functioning communications team should be considering these 3 primary styles of media, and then the secondary categories associated with each one. Again, I walked into a situation where these things were done quite well already, and then I just needed to capitalize on those things. My initial step was to create a document that would guide the work of the School and Community Relations Department. Our primary goals are to engage, support, and inspire. And you don't need to be able to read that fine print. The key with this particular document is to recognize that every single member of the team recognizes that this is what drives our work, ensuring that we are communicating that our district is successful, innovative, community-focused, diverse. Our students are inspired, determined, joyful, resilient, curious. Our staff, engaged, passionate, compassionate, high quality. So those are the kinds of things that we're constantly temperature checking ourselves against to make sure that we're telling these stories. I created a document for the School and Community Relations team that it's about a 8-page document that broke things down on in terms of how we were going to take that laundry list that I've shared with you and compartmentalize it to say, okay, these are the areas of focus for the first quarter of the first year, second quarter of the first year, third quarter of the first year, fourth quarter of the first year, all the way through year 3, right? So this is just a snapshot of what that larger document looks like. Recognizing that a lot of things, as I said, were already in place in a really healthy way. We built on what existed and transitioned a few directions. So our volunteer program, we integrated Raptor, which is currently our visitor system, visitor management system. We integrated the volunteer component of Raptor into our volunteer program this year. Integrated a new process for how we tell stories with the Be Bold. I'm going to drop to social media. So social media is an interesting situation, right? We already had a really healthy focus on Facebook, a really healthy presence on Twitter. I'll show another slide. Actually, I'll jump to this one, and then I'll jump back. So this is what other school districts look like in terms of the way that school districts utilize social media platforms around the country. 68% of school districts are on Facebook, 53% on Twitter, 10% on Instagram, 22% are nowhere. And the critical thing about this to remember is that about 85% of adults primarily use social media as the place that they receive their information. That's their primary source of information. So if we're not there, we're doing something wrong. Secondary to that is recognizing that demographics are different for each of these social media platforms. Instagram, the fact that 10% of school districts are using Instagram means that 10% of school districts are reaching the parents of their elementary kids. So the parents of elementary kids are typically primarily on Instagram versus Facebook or Twitter. So recognizing the demographical nature of who's using each of these platforms is something that we wanted to make sure that we were considering and being informed by in the decision making that we were doing, which is why we bolstered our use of Instagram and then also integrated LinkedIn. Waterloo Schools, as you know, has an incredibly healthy relationship with our business partners in our community. They're all on LinkedIn. So making sure that we were engaging with that demographic was important too. I'm not going to go through that whole list, but this gives you the bolded spots, give you an example of exactly where we started in terms of our focus this year. And I'm going to skip that. So this concept of one house, Waterloo Schools, one of the things that I was charged to accomplish is creating an image and a brand that would unify us in this concept of one house. We're one school district in one house. What does that look like? And we know the importance of uniforms, let's say, with something like an athletic organization or an athletic team. Even in performing arts, we know that you get on stage, you better all be wearing black, right? And so when you take that concept and you translate it to Waterloo Schools, the goal was to create a unified uniform for Waterloo Schools. This picture is just an example of what that symbolically looks like. And then also recognizing that there's a lot of psychology at work. We are in the business of customer service. One of the critical things to know about the psychology of customer service is that first impressions are lasting impressions, and psychology works 24/7. So when we think about the image of our Waterloo Schools, it's really around what that first impression is for potential employees, potential families, not just the ones we currently have in our Waterloo Schools community. So recognizing that we're making emotionally charged decisions every day of the week in terms of which businesses we give our money to, which businesses we engage with, the same is true about school districts. How do we create an impression of Waterloo Schools, recognizing that people make emotionally charged decisions that leads them to Waterloo Schools? So it's marketing psychology, but one of the things that's important, I think, to consider is that we're constantly making decisions in fractions of seconds. And psychology tells us that our first impression becomes our lasting impression. It's nearly impossible to change the first impression that we have on an organization, a company, or a person. So I want to just give you that information, that level of information as to the why behind something like branding. We know these stories, what we're promised, let's say we're getting a burger somewhere, versus what's delivered, right? We've been through that. And when I started here at Waterloo Schools, I believe this is what we were delivering. This is what we are delivering. And so then it's making sure that people don't think we're delivering this, right? So with that information in mind, we know all of these different ways that other companies use branding and the importance of logo. What is important, I think, for us to consider moving forward is brand is not just logo, typography, and colors. It's also quality, experience, and value. And so as we move forward, thinking about how we integrate the Be Bold messaging and the colors and everything that we're beginning to see as familiar throughout our community, it's also how do we ensure that we're communicating about the experience and the value that we add to our families. So logos are practical identifiers, but they're also directly connected to perceived experience, and they're a visual promise that communicates quality, experience, and value. We're one of the largest employers in the Cedar Valley, more locations than any other entity in our city. So our footprint is significant, right? That visual footprint is significant, and our impact is significant. We enhance both our recognition and our reputation as a thriving educational institution. That's our why. Additionally, the impact of any brand identity depends on consistent use, resulting in a large number of impressions over a long period of time. So that's what we call saturating the market, right? All of the stuff that we've been creating, all of the stuff that we've been pushing out, all of the things that Michael looks at the budget and is like, Akwi, so that budget, can we talk about that? It's really intended to do this. A message doesn't actually take hold unless you're using it in a large number of impressions over a long period of time. So Anna, when she first started, she essentially created what a marketing team would do over the course of a year in about 3 months. So she went through every single one of our schools. She ensured that every single one of our schools had updated logos in all the different file types. And we're talking probably collectively over 200 different file types that she created in the course of about 3 months. And so all of our schools had that as the foundation to work with. When we think about Nike, we know that they don't sell t-shirts, they sell championships. They sell blood, sweat, and tears, right? We know that Jeep doesn't sell good tires, they sell adventure. They sell outdoors, right? And so thinking about how Waterloo schools would captivate, influence, and transform behavior is what went into the thinking of Be Bold. So any campaign that's doing what it's supposed to be doing does these 3 things. It captivates, influences, and transforms. So captivating our audience, the Be Bold does that. The next step, though, is to influence how they think about us, respect, trust, likability, and then transform their behavior, parent conferences, enrollment, support, in order to realize our vision. So these are really the 3 steps behind the Be Bold. Let's captivate, let's influence, let's transform behavior. And when in this slide it says transform their behavior, that's all of us. That's staff, that's families, that's students, right? That transformation of behavior that leads to engagement, that leads to academic achievement, happens over time, and with a concept like this as the catalyst for that action. Also, as long as it's embedded in the goals of the school district and in the goals of each of the buildings. So I'm hopeful that as our schools have embraced the Be Bold concept, we also continue to move towards thinking about how we intentionally create a relationship between Be Bold as a slogan to Be Bold as a substantive way of thinking about how we're inviting and inspiring different actions with our groups. So Be Bold, I mean, you've seen these images before. You're familiar with the video, the anchor video that then, I'm not going to play, I'm going to try to skip through that. That is exactly this. So there are 2 ways to share knowledge. You can push information out, you can pull them in with stories. So the Be Bold campaign does that in a variety of different ways, as we've talked about tonight. And I'm not going to go through the whole synopsis and the information that you have in your board agenda, but that information is there for you to review if you'd like on your own. And you've seen some of these images. So the traditional way that we've approached the Be Bold concept in TV, newspaper, radio, and mail, this is just one example of that. We started this in the fall, getting our students to really be the face and voice of our district. So getting our students and staff to be the faces and voices of our district. So we inspire students to be exceptional, be confident, be you, be bold. Obed is one of my favorite stories of this year. So he's a senior. As you know, you're familiar with Obed. He's presented here with cybersecurity, and he's really become sort of the face of Waterloo Career Center in some ways that we tell that story. One of the things that I love about Obed is how passionate he is about other students like him who started in ELL, recognizing the capacity and the opportunities that are available to them at the Waterloo Career Center. So again, it's visually appealing, but at the same time, there's a depth of story there that we're hoping achieves our goals in terms of engagement and academic success. I'll zip through those things. You're familiar with these posters, again, just in terms of giving our students and our staff the opportunity to be the voice of the Waterloo schools and the voice of what bold is. So the next step really is continuing to define what we mean by bold. And this is where I would say something like Be Bold, right? It can go a couple of different ways. To be bold can be a negative thing, risk-taking, right? It can inspire risky behavior, and that's not the kind of bold we're talking about. So it's critical that we continue to define what we mean by bold as a school district. And then finally, just incorporating the Be Bold concept into our schools, using their topography, their logos, their color palettes, and creating that sense again of unity and that one house. Some of these posters will be delivered to the schools, and really seeing the fall as a way to launch in the schools individually additional work on Be Bold. Right now it's been primarily district wide. And I'm going to jump through some of these. I want to share with you this particular slide, in part because this is a document that I've worked on with the Waterloo Career Center. So we are going to continue amplifying a couple of different taglines. The future is now, or if we're talking to students, your future is now, and see yourself here. And so this document was created again with WCC specifically, but also our approach to thinking about career development that would include Zello, that would include LifeLab. So that CTE umbrella is the larger umbrella under which LifeLab, WCC, and so on lives. This kind of language is related to that. So if we're thinking through CTE, the future is now, we are here to progressively engage students and develop a highly skilled workforce by providing unprecedented exposure to careers and opportunities. Waterloo Schools powers a thriving, entrepreneurial, highly skilled, and educated workforce in the Cedar Valley and beyond. And then we broke it down to 3 values: equity, curiosity, and learning, and then 3 focus areas: collaborate, inform, celebrate. So that's just an example of a document that we'll be working that I'll be working on with Amy H., Amy Meehee, Kelly Martin. There were about 8 of us around the table. So developing this even further and then continuing to use that through the coming year. So I zipped through those last few slides because I think I've said what I think is important at this point in the game. As we look ahead to the second and third years of this, I'm really excited to see how the buildings continue to integrate in really substantial ways a definition of bold that's autonomous to the building and that's aligned with their building goals. If, let's say, you want to engage students with particular activities and you have a building goal that does that, how does My Bold Is relate to that particular initiative? Or parent conferences. If your goal is to increase parent conference attendance by X%, how can you create a My Bold Is action step that gets people, that gets families one step closer to achieving that goal? So that's just a rundown, of sort of where we are. What are questions that you have? I zipped through that really quickly.
I don't have a question, just a comment.
Yeah.
Looks wonderful. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was trying to think of a word to describe just the detail and the it looks great. Looks great.
Thank you.
Maybe comprehensive, maybe that's what you're looking for? It's really comprehensive.
I love to get the notifications that come on my phone several times a day of My Bold Is. They really do. They remind me of what we're doing every day.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm hopeful that it continues to be something that even, the Community Relations Office and Human Resources continue to partner in this way. I can see it being something that we create the hope is that we would create assets that the Human Resources Department can then use at job fairs and those kinds of things, like come to Waterloo, that whole idea of Waterloo Schools being a destination district, right? Being able to define what bold looks like for potential employees and really getting them excited about being here. So, yeah.
I remember at the beginning of the year, when you talked about the opening day, you're like, I don't know, you hate how the Be Bold thing was how that was going to go.
Yeah.
And everyone I've met is excited about it. The kids love it. Parents talk about it. So it's something that is there.
Yeah.
Like, it's impacting everybody, and I wanted to thank you, because it really is beautiful, Luckily, it really is.
Thank you.
That's a great tagline to be able to have out, or put on social media, or, just to be able to have it. And I appreciate you guys telling those stories for those who may never get the chance to have their face somewhere, but to be very proud of it. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Janelle said comprehensive engagement, I think, is a better word. It seems like from kindergarten all the way to, the staff that retired recently. So I think everybody's engaged in this. So wonderful.
Which is
Great
interesting,
job.
because I'm the high school mom who watches Facebook stuff. So when you said the Instagram, I'm like, that's because I'm too old for that now. But that is the group. My daughter, she's like, you're on Facebook, and she watches everything on Instagram. So it's really good to see, because Jared does that too. So seeing you guys together bring us into the 21st century.
Well, and speaking of social media, the next is like, do we really want to tackle TikTok? But there's a whole demographic on TikTok. I mean, our students are on TikTok. And so when we're thinking through how do we engage students more with the WCC, more with some of the things that we have available to them in terms of opportunities, the answer is that they're on TikTok. We sort of have to go where they are. It's scary to me even to think about, but I think if we get to that point, we'll be engaging with our students in a way that not other school districts are doing quite yet.
I think it can be done responsibly, don't you guys? I mean, my kids are on there all day. They just are.
Yeah.
Probably at school. So, I don't know enough about the weird stuff with TikTok. I know that there's some issues, but I think that if we're presenting our stuff in the right way, I don't know, let us know what you come up with.
Okay.
I'm interested now.
I will.
Use your tools. The students will be able to help you.
I know. No, seriously, they are definitely, I keep saying to them, look, we need your insight. We need your participation in where and how we tell the stories to continue further engaging with students. I've got a 12 years old. Oh my gosh, I've got a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. And my 16-year-old, I'm constantly going to her, like, all right, if I'm trying to get students involved, where do I go? What do I use? And can you please make a video for me on your phone, which she's better at than most people. So
thank you very much.
Yeah,
We greatly appreciate the presentation. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So our next item on our agenda would be information from individuals and delegations. Do we have anybody in the room who would like to come and speak? Okay. Fantastic. So let me do this little spiel. This is the opportunity where those who wish to address the school board may do so. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Ms. Orndorff will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining and a red card when your time has expired. And at that time, I will ask you to conclude your public remarks. Please keep your comments respectfully and constructive, and we are all here with the goal of trying to help our students. Please also avoid criticizing the job performance of specific employees of the school district. Personnel matters are confidential and must be handled through the proper channels and not in public forum. Finally, we provide this opportunity for public comments, but it is generally not a back and forth discussion, especially if items not on the agenda. At times, we'll try to help if we can with information before or after the meeting, but we have to proceed with our board meeting agenda items. And with that said, just address the board with your name and home address and your comments. Thank you.
My name is Janie Oberhoy. I live at 5532 Summerlin Drive in Waterloo. I am a second grade teacher here in Waterloo, as well as the Cedar Valley chapter lead for the Be Smart program, which is what we are here to talk to you about tonight. As a teacher, gun violence in schools is something that is quite frequently on my mind, and ultimately what led me to do this work in 2022 after the Uvalde school shooting. I checked in on a first-year teacher after that shooting and said, "It gets easier after your first one." This is something I should never have to say to a fellow coworker. Be Smart is a program developed by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund to bring parents together and all adults concerned about kids, guns, and safety. We all want kids to grow up happy and healthy. As school board members, we know that this matters to you too, and we are grateful for that. Parents rely on the schools to help keep their kids safe. We each have the right to make responsible decisions about how to protect our homes, families, and communities, including whether or not to have a gun in our home. But if we can prevent even one child from gun death or injury, it's our responsibility to do so. We're not here to talk about laws or policies, so let's set those aside. Before we will begin, we will be talking about stories of gun violence and suicide, and we know living through these experiences is devastating, and hearing about them can be difficult as well. If you need to step away during our session to care for yourself, please do so. It's a heartbreaking fact that in the U.S., firearms are the leading cause of death for children. This is a public health crisis. Nearly 2,100 children under the age of 18 are killed with guns every year, an average of 6 children every day. When children are killed with guns, the majority of those deaths, nearly 60%, are homicides. That's nearly 1,200 children per year. Additionally, more than 700 children die by firearm suicide each year, and more than 100 are unintentionally shot and killed. We're here today to talk about how we can prevent tragedies like that. A shocking 4.6 million children in the U.S. live in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. While school shootings and mass shootings typically make national headlines, almost all children unintentional shooting deaths occur in the home. And the Secret Service found that 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or close relative. So listen, I know this is an emotional issue, and we may come from different walks of life. Many of you may be parents, some of you may be gun owners, and some of you may not be. Some of you may have had a personal experience with guns, and some of you may have even been impacted by gun violence.
My name is Kristen Stanford, and I live at 1708 Partridge Lane, and I have 2 students in Waterloo Schools at Hoover. I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us today, because we are parents who come here concerned. My husband is a gun owner and enjoys pheasant hunting with my son every fall. We believe that most gun owners want to be responsible, so we are here today to talk to you all about what gun owners and non-gun owners alike can do to make sure children and teens do not have unsupervised access to guns. I want to take a few minutes to talk about specifically the consequences of unsecured guns look like in our communities. We all know the story of the 6-year-old who brought a gun to school and shot his teacher in Newport News, Virginia, or the shooting by a 15-year-old in Oxford, Michigan, that killed 4 students. But we also know we have incidents here in Waterloo. Just over a month ago, a 14-year-old student at Central Middle School was arrested for a gun being found in their backpack. All of these stories show the fallout when young people get their hands on unsecured guns. No story is quite the same, but all are tragic and all are preventable. We can each take action in our homes and our communities to keep our children safe, even if you don't have a gun in your home. Or if you do and you're already practicing secure gun storage, what can you do right now? Together, we can learn to be smart. Let's start with the S in SMART. Secure your guns in homes and vehicles. 13 million households with children contain at least one gun. The majority of children in gun-owning households actually know where the gun is stored. So what do I mean by securing guns? The best type of gun storage is one that is used consistently. Whether it is gun safe, a lockbox, cable, or a trigger lock, the gun must be inaccessible to children or teens. Remember, hiding a gun is not safely securing a gun. Contrary to popular belief, locking up guns does not prevent owners from readily accessing their guns. One common myth is that storage devices negate the self-defense purpose of owning a gun. There are many safe options for gun storage that provide owners with access in a matter of seconds, using a keypad or biometric technology, while still preventing access by children and people at increased risk of harming themselves or others. Further, it is possible that unsecured guns may actually increase the likelihood of crime and violence through an increased risk of gun theft. Locking up guns will help reduce the risk of suicide by firearm, unintentional firearm injury, and also help prevent firearm theft. Thank you. Hi there, my name is Kayla Craig. I live at 205 Prospect in Waterloo. I'm a mom to 4 kids between the ages of 7 and 12, and my elementary kids attend Orange Elementary. I have sat in meetings brainstorming with incredible teachers and staff about what my daughter, who has cognitive and physical disabilities, will do if there is a gun brought to school, as she relies on a paraprofessional to physically pick her up and take her somewhere and push her in her wheelchair. She doesn't have the ability to hide somewhere or be quiet. No parent should have to imagine the unimaginable. I want to do what I can to make sure all kids stay safe, and I know you guys do too. And one way we can do that is to prevent unauthorized access to guns. You might not know that hundreds of thousands of guns are stolen every year. It's important to remember to lock up any guns in cars as well, because more than half of stolen guns are taken from cars. Just putting a gun under a seat or in the glove compartment wouldn't be considered secure storage. There are car gun lock boxes available for purchase at most retail and sporting goods stores. So the M in SMART stands for modeling responsible behavior. Every law-abiding grown-up has the right to decide whether or not to have a gun in our home. But we can't rely on curious kids not to find a gun. Kids know. They know where their parents store their guns. And more than 1/3 reported handling their parents' guns, many without the knowledge of their parents. Nearly 1/4 of parents didn't even know that their kids had ever handled a gun in their house. It is always an adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious child's responsibility to avoid them. Talk to your kids about gun safety, but remember that's a precaution, not a guarantee. One study found that young children who go through a week-long gun safety training are just as likely as kids with no training to approach or play with a handgun when they find one. Modeling responsible behavior means that smart grown-ups and smart adults make sure that kids do not have the opportunity to access guns. That said, me and you cannot control the environment that our kids are in all the time. But we can teach them not to touch a gun if they come across one, real or pretend, and give them the tools to get out of a dangerous situation and to alert an adult. As an adult, it's your responsibility to do everything you can to prevent them from getting in a dangerous situation to begin with. As we've mentioned, there are approximately 4.6 million U.S. children living in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. That's why you need to ask about firearms in other homes your child visits, and that's the A in SMART ask. For the parents and caretakers in the room, I know we ask questions before our kids go to a friend's or another person's home. Maybe we ask about pools on the property, or food allergies, car seats for rides, who will be the adult supervising, or maybe alcohol access. Asking about guns in the home can and should be as natural as asking about any other safety issue.
Thank you. So that's been 3 minutes, so we're going to go next.
Hello, my name is Kelly Gans, and I live at 2412 Valley High Drive in Cedar Falls. I have a preschooler at Orchard Hill as well as a 3-year-old. I'm here to talk about the R, recognizing the role of guns in suicide. My cousin died by gun suicide. He had access to his parents' gun and died using that gun. He was an only child. After that happened, my aunt and uncle packed up their house and moved to Colorado to be alone, away from everyone. They no longer speak to any of my aunts, uncles, cousins because of the guilt and pain they feel. Access to a gun can mean the difference between life and death. As our children get older, you may need to consider taking another look at your storage methods. If you've been using a simple cable lock, you may want to consider a gun safe. We all know how curious children can be, so as they get older and more resourceful, you will need to act accordingly. Also, if you know your loved one is in distress, you may want to consider temporarily removing a gun from your home. Here's why. It's important to know that firearm suicide is uniquely lethal. Most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. Okay, here comes some stats. 90% of suicide attempts using a gun end in death, and half of suicides in the U.S. are gun suicides. 70% of people who survive a suicide attempt will never attempt suicide again. 42% of child suicides involve a gun. The National Youth Survey conducted by the CDC shows that 20% of high school students had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. One study showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households report having easy access to the guns in their home. So if you don't consider temporarily removing a gun from your home, you may be wondering how you can do that, if you do consider it. Local law enforcement, licensed gun dealers, or gun ranges may be willing to temporarily store your guns. Or you could temporarily store your guns in the home of a friend or a family member. To manage risks for that friend or family member, you should lock any of your guns that you transfer and do not provide the key or code. Depending on the state law, the person agreeing to store your guns may first need to get a background check at a gun dealer or through law enforcement. As we discussed earlier, research shows that secure firearm storage is associated with a decreased risk of child firearm suicide. Some signs to look out for when concerned that a loved one may be suicidal: prolonged sadness and depression, changes in mood or behavior, hopelessness, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing, isolation, aggression or agitation, increased alcohol or drug use, and talking about killing themselves. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Partee, and I live at 924 Sycamore Street in Waterloo. I am a gun violence survivor, and my daughter works at a local elementary school. About a month ago, minutes before dismissal, a car was pulled over in the front pickup line. A 16-year-old was found with a gun and arrested. My stomach turns with every new headline I see about kids and guns. Our children depend on us adults to help keep them safe and ensure they have futures. I refuse to continue to sit back and silently keep reading these stories, which is why I am here today to discuss the T for tell. Finally, the T, tell. That is the power of being smart. So how will you commit to be smart today? Sharing the Be Smart message, the way we will save lives, is by spreading awareness. So I'd love for you to take just a few moments and think about who you are going to tell to be smart today. Go ahead and text a friend right now if you want to, or think of 3 organizations that you think should hear this message. You can also text SMART to 64433. Be smart. Secure all guns in your homes and vehicles. Model responsible behavior around guns. Ask about unsecured guns in other homes. Recognize the role of guns in suicide. Tell your peers to be smart. Thank you all for your time today, and we look forward to future discussions with the board about what more we can do in Waterloo schools to keep kids safe from gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your presentation for today. Do we have anyone else who would like to come to the board? All right.
We might. No? Yes? No? Yes.
3 minutes? Yeah.
3 minutes?
Go ahead and say your name and your address, please.
Okay. My name is Lovely Henderson. Address is 305 Julie Court in Waterloo. I was just voicing the concern about the baseball field at East High School not having lights. My son has open enrolled there and has been playing baseball since eighth grade. And I don't know if people are aware that games that we play have to be earlier, not having lights at 3:30. So a lot of the parents cannot attend, and therefore there's not people there to support the team. And a lot of the teammates, that kind of gets them down. They feel less than because parents can't be there. They can't have people there. And knowing that West High baseball and the softball team has lights, and they've had it for many years, as well as the softball team. They have lights. There was a time last year where it started raining, and we had to postpone the game for a while, and we didn't think we were going to finish up the last game because lights are going to be going out. So as parents, we were saying, hey, can we turn on our car lights? Is there some way so the boys can still play and win? And we want to do that. And it really became a concern this year when I'm originally from Fort Dodge, and I graduated from there, and we're in the New Alliance, and we have some people that were going to come down for the game. And they're like, why is the game at 3:30? We can't make that. And I was letting them know that they don't have lights. And they're like, well, how does all the other schools have lights? And I was like, that is a concern. If we're supposed to be Waterloo, Bold School District, everyone's sticking together, there's no reason that East High's baseball team should not have lights. And that's something that's a concern, and it should be addressed soon. Thank you.
Going to go ahead, Lyle?
Do we want to
Yeah.
interject at this point?
Yep, go ahead.
Approval for the lights passed through the Facilities Committee this last meeting.
Okay.
And so it will probably be coming to the board
We already approved it, didn't we?
next meeting, maybe?
No, it's just gone through facilities.
Okay.
So I guess suffice to say, I think it's being sufficiently addressed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. Thank
We will
you.
be starting the approval process, yes, this summer.
All right, great. Anyone else who would like to come speak to the board? All right. With that said, we'll move on to the consent agenda for tonight. We have 5 items. First one is minutes of the May 8th, 2023 regular board meeting. D, personnel appointments and adjustments. E, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings. F, joint education service agreement between Hawkeye Community College and Waterloo Community School District. G, and board meeting dates. H, any of those to remove? Sorry.
E, please.
E? Even Eagle? Okay.
Echo, not evil.
Echo. Anything else? All right, with that said, can I get a motion to approve D, F, G, and H, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse.
Second.
Astor, thank you. All right. And vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. D, E, F, G, H have all been approved. Motion carried. And E, let's go ahead and read that consent agenda. E. There you go. The superintendent recommendation is the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second?
Thank you, Stacy. Go ahead. Here's your question.
Yeah, so, my own, wanting to know for myself and also community inquiries, we'd like to have my rundown on the new position of Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging.
Job description handy. I can discuss the salary if that's a question you have.
Yeah, what the position is, like what the duties will be, where it falls in the DLT, those sort of things.
We pull up the job description if we can find it real quick. Once you pull it up, and I can kind of give the overview. So, Director of Equity, Inclusion, Belonging has been a conversation we've had for a few months. I would say for a few months now. Quite honestly, when I started, this question I had was, is there a Director of Equity and Inclusion in the district? My research indicates that every school district, and maybe that's an overgeneralization, almost every school district our size in the state has that position. When I came in, it was a conversation that we have had, but it was decided that for whatever reason before I got here, was not needed. So after some ongoing conversation this year about what is expected, separation of duties within our different departments, it became pretty clear this was a need for us. We've tried to, and again, I have not been here. The feedback I'm getting is just anecdotal from different people. But we tried to piecemeal it together in terms of the professional development that we offer around equity. there just hasn't been a stabilizing force. It's always kind of been, well, you pick up this piece, you pick up this piece, you pick up this piece, you pick up this piece. Like, it'd be nice if we had somebody who could come in and be an expert at just overseeing the entire equity plan for the district. So that conversation, like I said, started earlier this year.
And when you're talking about that, that's not just the HR side, you're talking about the kid side as well, correct? Or is
Yeah,
this just HR?
absolutely.
This is
That's a great question. Because when we think of HR, really, I think of HR mostly, for the most part, dealing with adults.
Right.
We've got student services, which deals students. And then we've got ed services, which is kind of dealing with a combination of both. Ed services more the teaching and learning side. So your question about like where does this position fall? Like we had that conversation about whether or not, about what department it should go in. And right now we do not have it assigned to a certain department.
Can it be its own?
Well, that's kind of the conversation we're having right now, because I think it really crosses over all three of those areas. So the way it's set up in the organizational chart for next year is to report to me. That would be one of my direct reports. We had a pretty lengthy job description there. I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to highlight, if you're able to pull it up from your, if there's, we can go to it a little bit more if you want. We spent a lot of time looking at that job description. We looked at like 6 different districts and pulled together like the best look-fors for the job. And again, I think what you're going to see in that job description is it's working with not only just the adult side of it, the kid side, and also the community side as well. Because right now that's been a hot topic, let's be honest. And how do we ensure that the needs of the community are being met as well? And we feel good about this position doing those things.
Yeah, so Gina would also be able to work with Ockley then as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, yeah.
I see this going, again, across all different departments.
Can we share the job description with our media sources so that people understand, since it is a brand new position, so people have an understanding of what we're looking at, so they appreciate exactly why we're spending the money we are and what all we are going to benefit from the position. Is that something we can do?
We can. I don't know if just posting a job description in the media would be the best way to share with the community how to do it, since it was already posted for a month or so.
I don't know how.
Trying to build on what Jared said, I would say, 90% of the equity work in any district is really about students.
Yes.
When it comes to staff and adults, we're talking about 2 things: providing professional development and, hiring practices. And so in terms of, hiring practices, those are all things that are covered within a human resources function. But
hiring practices, and then also like as there's issues that come up throughout the year with staff, is that, that's all kind of together, right?
yeah, those issues, an equity director would not be addressing staff misconduct or things like that.
No, I mean if there's an equity issue with staff. Like if staff has a concern.
Yes, this person could be a resource for staff for really anything equity related. So I don't know if that helps answer.
No, it does. I was happy to receive some community just inquiries as to what the position was going to look like, because it is a significant salary, so making sure that people understand the big footprint that this position is going to make and how it fits into the DLT structure, so that it is a significant branch now. And I think we just need to make sure we...
Yeah, I think the best thing about this position is it's going to be able to connect all the different work that's happening in pockets around the district all over the place, and really start to help our staff in schools get the tools they need to be able to teach with equity in mind, and start really picking up some strategies in that area.
When you were considering this position, did you feel like coming from a different district, that was a disconnect that we may have trying to fill this position?
I was surprised that Waterloo, of all districts, did not have this position, given its size, but also given our demographics. I have found it to be a need as I try to balance my role this year in terms of HR, and equity. And a lot of feedback I've heard from people in the district this year is, we've talked about equity for 15 years, but what have we really done?
Okay. How the job description needs and goals different from the previous HR person? Because he had equity at the back end of his title too. So, yeah, some of the job descriptions.
So what makes this more worth its own
Yes.
position? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, without having much time to really prepare for this discussion, I just think it's the position.
Because I emailed like 45 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
I mean, the position that I'm in cannot do both.
Right.
HR and equity with justice. So it's kind of like, what thing is not going to get done? And, equity is so important, especially in our district, that it was really time to bring somebody in that had the expertise and could connect all the different pieces of work that need to happen and that are happening in little pockets everywhere.
I think a big part of what you said was stated, a lot of it is student-based, and so really not in the HR umbrella if it's student-based, so.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And how did we then come up with the base salary?
Yeah, I can answer that. So, quite transparently, the range was 90 to 110.
Okay.
Two different things happened. Is one, when we offered the position, the individual, Gina, was making close, near the top end of that salary in her current position.
Okay.
She negotiated for a higher salary. We also looked at our most recent director hire, which is director special ed. Director of Special Ed, when we hired that position, we had a person who was brand new to the position. We gave her the very lowest end of that salary range, which I believe was 120 to 140.
And that's based on, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
120 to 133.
120 to 133 for the Director of Special Ed.
Did we set those, or?
We set it based on
I mean, that
salary.
has been, I'm sorry, that we had the 120 for the Director of Special Ed. That's something that we've developed and that was already in place because of us? So you mean like the board?
That was set based on the previous Director of Special Education's salary, and that was low, the range was slightly lower than that original director's salary.
Okay.
So knowing where we just came in at that new Director of Special Education at the very low end, we had some conversations about whether or not it should be slightly below that number or if it should be right at the same.
Mm-hmm.
Given some recent conversations, we felt like it would be appropriate to put it right at the same number as the Director of Special Ed.
And these positions require a master's degree, I'm assuming, correct? I mean, I don't want to get into personnel.
Yeah, most of these do. With the equity position, we did not require it. It was a preferred qualification. All of our finalists had a master's degree or above.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding new positions. What caught my attention was 8 supposedly new positions. I don't know if they're all net adds. Typically, a new position is one that doesn't have an identified person they're replacing. I understand one of them, which is the Ignite program that we're adding this next year. So that one is understandable. And I don't want to go into detail on all of them. And I understand staffing is especially difficult this year because we don't know what enrollment's going to be. Potentially it's going to be less. On the other hand, we certainly want to focus on reducing our dropouts, increasing our graduation rate, and eliminating the equity gap for sure. I say eliminating, not closing. So nobody has a crystal ball, and like I say, we don't know nobody knows at this point what the need is going to be. So we don't want to overstaff, and yet we also don't want to understaff because now we're hiring or trying to hire late in the year when the pool is really small. So lacking that, I'd still be interested in how these positions in particular are targeted for each of our objectives, particularly those that relate to the mission up here. And I know the board is going to be setting official goals soon. And those don't exist yet either, but just an explanation at some point how these new positions are going to help the district and in what way.
Is TAP new though? I mean, we've had TAP. Is this a replacement?
For secondary.
Oh, well, it wasn't.
So
My daughter works with TAP in secondary right now. So there's somebody.
So we're restructuring some of the coaching model for special education. My understanding, and again, coming in, looking at this fresh, is that we've had up to 10 special ed coaches in the past. This last year we operated with 4.
Oh.
So, we plan to have, I think we plan to have at least 6 last year, if not more, on the top of my head. But we were not able to have those because we were so shorthanded in the classroom. So what you're seeing, the secondary transition coach and the extended core instructional coach, those are both like a slight restructuring of our special ed coaches. So in my mind, we have these conversations all the time. It could be a little misleading when it says new position, because there's a lot of times it was a position that was not filled for the year. I mean, we looked at probably upwards of 20 positions this year that were not filled, that we are in some cases restructuring. So it might say new position, but in a lot of cases, these are positions that were never filled, that we went the year without. If I'm looking at the math position, I mean, there's other positions on there as well that, I mean, if we need to label it.
I mean, I can speak to any of the elementary ones, anything added at the general elementary level. So what I did this year, which I think is new kind of for our district, is I had a one-on-one meeting with every elementary principal and our director of elementary education and tried to forecast or predict what their class sizes might be for next year, which is not a perfect science. So, but in doing that, we have a class size criteria that we try to follow pretty closely. So I think in a few cases it might have involved adding another position where there wasn't a section there last year, or in a couple of the cases, I think there were at least 5 elementary classroom positions around the district last year that we were not able to fill, and so they went just without this year. Class sizes got bigger, class sizes got capped at schools, which results in kids having to go to other schools outside of their neighborhood. So in terms of the secondary positions, that process has been traditionally handled by the Ed Services Office, and I kind of just let that be where it was this year. But in the future, I think that process in terms of staffing at the secondary level appropriately would be a collaboration between my office, Ed Services, and the secondary principals, kind of similar to how we did the elementary process this year.
And ultimately, the question is, will these fit in the budget? And granted, our budget's set for this next year. And I guess if we end up losing more students, or losing students at all, then we think if we end up to be, quote, overstaffed, however you define that, the following year, we've always got 50 or 60 positions to fill.
Higher. A little higher usually.
Or a little higher each year anyway, so I guess that becomes
right. It would be fairly easy at the teaching level to right-size our staffing through attrition, unless it's through some more special area positions.
So, Lyle, when we're talking about eradicating the gap, I think that the 2 positions, the TAP and the Ed Services, I think those 2 are pretty instrumental in that kind of work. That's my take. Would you guys agree that that's, Jared?
But we might need more positions to focus.
Yes, I agree.
Laser-like on that gap.
Yeah.
I did want to add a comment about Lyle's question about budget. Yes, it's a real concern when we have so many issues that we don't know the answers to yet. But the finance formula in Iowa is structured to give us a year's grace. Next year's budget is on this year's enrollment, so we're not experiencing that drop yet. or that possibility. So yes, it does give us a chance to go forward with what we know, and then if circumstances change, then we've got time to adjust to that. So it's not immediate impact on budget numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional questions in regards to personnel?
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for helping me out with that.
Okay, great. So, all in favor of approving the personnel appointments?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I agree. Motion carried, 7-0. All right, our next item would be the curriculum adoption for K-12 physical education. Let me read that. Nope. Yeah, this would be Travis. Okay, so we have Travis, Ryan, possibly Sharice. So this superintendent recommendation is the Board of Education approve the K-12 physical education curriculum adoption at a total cost of $392,194.15, beginning with the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Hi, Travis.
Hi.
How's it going?
I think this is my last one. So I'm quite excited. I love seeing you all, but maybe different circumstances. Exciting times as we're going through reviews. About the 1920 school year, I had the opportunity to have physical education added to kind of my purview. And so I've been able to work with some fantastic folks to revamp some curriculum. Last adoption was around 2014. You'll notice that in the board exhibit, and if you had the chance to go through our curricular documents, we unpacked every standard, addressed issues of duration, students actually taking the courses, especially when we get to the high school level and we have those opt-out kind of opportunities based on schedules and such. You'll notice that our adoption is looking at a K2 and a 3.5 or 3.6 technically adoption for Spark at our elementary level. We have worked, we vetted 2 companies, and so we're taking the updated version of Spark, which comes with an app for teacher usage to track student progress. 6 through 12. There's not a lot out there for us to purchase, and so this team worked diligently to continue to unpack standards and address their facilities and the things that they had and how they could ensure opportunities and experiences across building types. So that is, in a nutshell, kind of our process. And the dollar amount is for a lot of non-consumables, aside from the K-5 curricular package that comes with professional development. The rest is equipment needs and addressing all of those things in whatever building.
So kind of give some idea what those curriculum objects.
Oh yeah, so like, actually I would like to call up some of our folks. Love you all. Joanna Ranavardi at the high school level, Caleb at the middle school level, and Tara Tyson. Yeah. Awesome. They can speak more clearly about all the things. Gym has changed, or physical education has changed a bit since I was last there.
Yeah, for one thing, we don't call the girls' gym anymore.
Right. Isn't that nice? I'm Tara Tyson, and I am at Orange Elementary, and we just wanted to continue to adopt our Spark curriculum, and the equipment needs that come with that. Obviously, sometimes the activities have shifted, or due to adapted needs for some of our students, and being able to supply then physical activity for all students. So getting that need of new equipment for that.
So what the equipment look like? Give me an example, maybe being purchased.
It could be new basketballs, new rackets. I know some of our equipment may be lighter for some of our other students, but just anything that goes within our units for the Spark curriculum.
What are the 5 universal standards?
What's that?
What are the standards, the state level?
So we have the state, or the national standards is what we go by. And so For instance, our standard number 1 is more about their being able to perform the skills. The second one is more about how they incorporate the movement with maybe their force, whatnot. And then third is more of like the wellness component, I would say. It's more of like the nutrition pieces. And then 4 is like how do they adopt, how do they act, basically, their behaviors in physical education. And then standard 5 is really more of like a lifetime type standard. So.
Is this 190 like split up among the 13 elementary schools, or how's that?
All of those numbers are across the building. So that first number, the 190, is for all 11 elementaries. Then the secondary is for the 4 middle schools, 2 traditional, and Expo for high schools.
Okay, so how does the teacher determine they get this amount or versus another?
They were really based on needs after they wrote their units of what they would need. And so I think some folks have inherited certain items and some have not. And so it really just depends. So they then said, we need this minimum, and this is what we needed to fill from there.
All right, so they all pretty much put their proposal together and then submitted it and came up with a number.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Of course.
At the secondary level, how flexible is our program in terms of units that can be taken outside the normal school day?
I love you asking that question. Joanna's here to fill you in.
Okay, I'm Joanna Ranavardi. I'm at East High School, and I'll speak to kind of the secondary level. We really tried to provide, and looking at all 3 of the high schools, opportunities to have a individualized within the classroom, so that in any given class, not everybody is doing the same thing. So we may have 4 or 5 different activities going on at the same time, and it is about students finding something that they would want to do for a lifetime.
So it's not like it used to be where you had to wait the day of when you picked and you had to run real quick and get to the right board.
Exactly. It's, we'll have volleyball and basketball and badminton and soccer and walking. And so where we have options where it's large group, small group, and individualized. And a student has a choice of what it is they're going to pick for that day. Maybe it's, the only one that's really specific is the weight room. So if you're wanting to do specifically strength training, things related to that, then you're in a strength and conditioning course. But we have still tried to make that curriculum for that particular course individualized. We're going to teach the basic fundamentals, and then the program that we have that we use will individualize for that specific student. The teacher sets the parameters, and let's say that I'm really good and I've really got this lift, then the next lift that I'm going to do after that is going to be more challenging for me so that I can do that. And if I really struggled with it, it's going to give me some supplemental instruction before I move on to the next thing. And as far as outside the classroom, we try to, within our curriculum, say, here's a whole variety of different things that you can do. Now, here's places in the community where you can go to get those experiences. There are some things that we have talked about collectively K-12 that we would like to get the kids that we can't offer within the classroom. We can't offer bowling. We can't offer fishing. We can't offer canoeing. We can teach them the basics, but then we need to connect them with the community so that they see what it is we have here in the Cedar Valley, so that they can experience those things, or where to find those resources. If it's something that they've really enjoyed and they want to expand on, where can they go to get those things?
So is there a specific number of hours they would need to get a credit, whether it's fishing or rowing or archery or whatever it is? Is there a structure? I guess the question, is there a structure there that anyone can look at and determine, I need to do this, this, and this, and then I will qualify for a PE credit?
At this time, I'm unsure from a district level. The state does list out, and I can't recall when it comes to credit requirements, but I think it's just documented seat time within a given class that shows you if you earn the PE credit or not. I don't think that we have developed that kind of an individualized plan or program quite yet.
That would be amazing, though. It really would. Like, one of my daughters did ice skating, so she'd get up and go to 6:30, practice in the mornings. So those things would be great. Do you feel like there's any way we can get more of our high school kids in PE? Like mine, it was just never part of their schedule. Can we like rotate every other day with their seminar or something? Is there something we can do to make more time for our high school kids?
We would love to have more kids in PE. We have a lot. Our classes are, I'm not going to get into class size, but some kids have, there are other things that they want to take. They're going to go to the Career Center, and that's 2 to 3 hours of their day, and so there's just not time. We would love to be able to, offer them some community, but it's who's going to be in charge of that, and with us teaching, what we are, I can't say that it's not a possibility, but it's logistically trying to figure out who's going to oversee that, and we can't just let a kid go out and do it. How do we hold them accountable for that, and how do we double check that they've done that? So
and I mean like even just in the...
And within the building, we try really hard to, some of it is kids really like how we're structuring things now and they want to take it, and so our numbers increase each year.
Good.
That we've got more and more kids that are coming back or that see how much fun we have, and it's like, I want to be in there, so how do I make it fit in my schedule?
And that's the reason I suggested basically the summer sports. I mean, most outdoor sports are summer sports, and we're not in school right then. So it seems like
we try to get those in throughout the year. It may be the first thing we do in the fall, tennis, those kinds of things, golf. We may try to, or they're the last things that we do at the end of the year just because of weather. And sometimes we play them inside.
Yeah. But from a schedule standpoint, to be able to get that, does the credit count for graduation?
I believe so, Sharice. Yes.
How many?
I think it's 4, and it needs to be...
Does it count in the grade point?
No, it does not currently count in the grade point.
The more you know.
Is there still an athletic exemption for PE?
Yes.
Speaking...
So, what is that? Is that just participation in any sport? Would cheerleading count? Would
marching band?
Sanctioned sport. So it has to be a state sanctioned activity. So if it's not sanctioned, then it doesn't count as an exemption.
And I do believe that, Janelle, I think we're on the same page. I think marching band may be included in that now in show choir. I'm unclear on some of that.
I don't think it does. If I'm remembering from my kids, but my kids' exemptions are all academic, so I don't know because they get half a credit for marching band, right?
No, they don't anymore. They haven't recently.
So I'm unsure at this point, but what I can do is I can follow up with...
we need to do that.
...inquiries.
I guess my point is these experiences are really valuable, and sometimes, if we look at the number of dropouts, particularly from 9th grade to 10th grade and 10th grade to 11th, get them involved in anything, but give them credit for it. Count it in the grade point if we can. Is that a state law that says we can't, or is that our own choice?
As we look at assessment over the next year, I know as we look at assessment over the next year, once we have the curriculum, then the next step for us will be to evaluate how we grade, how do we assess, and then once we have something consistent that we can bring back and say, this is how we're going to do it, and to have it, there are some districts, there are some models out there, there are some districts that do count it within the grade point. We just haven't in a long time.
So I think there's some positive changes we can make there, but mostly it's getting these kids involved in something, and my favorite is rowing. It's a great sport. I mean, in horsepower output per person, because the strength is proportional to your arms and legs, it's a terrific sport. So, and there's already a structure there. There's a rowing club in Waterloo.
Really?
Yeah. And they have the boats. Everything is there. So I guess what I'm looking for in cases like that, not just that, but in using that as an example, if we could outline specifically what it would take to include that as a PE credit, because it's a most of these are lifelong sport. That's I guess what I'm interested in. I don't know if is there any other interest in
I'd like to see grade, because maybe kids that are good at physical education, it could really help their grade point. If it's something that they're good at, they need to be rewarded for it. And they need credit for that in their GPA, and that might help graduation rates.
It's a career.
I agree with
Have you
Lyle,
seen
too.
pickleball? Have you seen people out there doing pickleball? It's incredible. Sorry.
And I was going to say, I agree with Lyle, though, that, like, incentivizing what they're already doing. I was a gymnast. I was terrible at every other sport. I hated volleyball in school. I wanted to run away. I hated it. But I never got, like, PE. Like, I never did well in PE because I was good at one thing. But it would have been amazing to have credit for that. That would have, that'd be great.
I think we're definitely at a point that we can further individualize using community partners to better support that. I think working with Joanna and the high school team, also Charisse, just determining how we might better serve our students in community by getting them into the community doing the thing. The whole idea is, how am I physically literate outside of high school? How do I engage in community via that method? And a lot of that's with progression, like elementary skills, middle is skills, and then high school is like, here are some lifetime activities, whether it's tailgate games, whether it's rowing. I just learned today that there's a rowing club, so actually really excited about that. But I think it would be working out what that would look like if that has to be explicitly listed in the program of studies, which is probably another conversation, but the team has worked really well to make it very holistic for what we can offer within the school day, and then connecting with community partners.
And those outside sports would probably need some supplement to, the nutrition part.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that the district could offer to make it a true, credit.
Oh, and I just pulled up Mallory's transcript. They get a quarter of a credit a year for marching band, so they get a credit by the end of the 4 years.
They have for years.
I think they should get more than that.
So,
They.
a little different question
It's very
here at the
physical.
secondary level. I will say what I enjoy as a parent is that, at least at the high school level, we've had options for PE. Flex and fit, strength and conditioning, traditional PE, and given facility, space, and equipment, how valuable is that at the middle school level for a program?
Jesse.
You see that?
I wasn't ready for that. I think we have to determine a lot of structural things, whether it comes to like our buildings and facilities or our scheduling, just based on each building is slightly different and each building is built different. I think that like long term, totally. I just think like next year,
No, I don't think next year, but what I see as a gap, and I have for years, is from our kids, from a strength standpoint, they do not develop as much between 6th and 8th grade across the board as kids in our school districts. And we have a big gap by the time they get to high school because they haven't been exposed to that. And getting some exposure to things other than traditional PE if they want to work on their strength or improvement. You can do core activities, but having to teach some of the things that I know our strength coaches do when these kids are 7th and 8th graders over the summer, having that already in place would help accelerate that. Like I said, given we have facilities and equipment, which is, a matter of budgeting and figuring out, but that is not out of the realm of possibility.
Right now, do all middle school kids do PE for one trimester out of the year?
there is,
Does that
our schedule is a little unique in the state, and we have students taking anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, or 9 weeks. 9 weeks is a quarter. There we go. 6 to 9 weeks of physical education one time each year.
in middle school?
In middle school.
Okay. So there's a lot of rotation.
Yeah, I think some kids would probably enjoy that.
No, I agree.
For a
It
full
is a
year.
rotation, but if you think about, they have 6 weeks of PE in some buildings once a year at the middle school level. So only 6 weeks of 36 is spent in PE, or 9 weeks of.
How long has it been like that? Did it used to be a semester?
No, it's hard to get like a
It used to be,
philosophical.
a long time ago, it used to be every other day.
Your whole life.
Your whole life, K-12.
That's what I did.
It was every other day K-12. In 1994, it went to one time a day for a semester, like once a week for a semester, and then it went to every day for 9 weeks, and for the last, 9 years?
Since 2012.
2012, it went to, at the middle schools, it was just that one rotation once a year. And then at the high school level, it's one semester, every day for a semester, but you also have the options for exempting out. So we have some kids that can make it through 4 years of high school and never take PE.
I think our obesity has increased during that time.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things, yeah. So, but that's kind of the,
Yeah.
I think we need to make a committee. Do you want to head it?
That might be something we want to discuss at a later date. Food for thought. Okay.
so, but we're really trying with the curriculum, we're really trying with this curriculum, K-12, to make it cohesive, they start with the foundation at the elementary level. We introduce a few more things at the middle school level, work on some of those 21st century skills at both the middle school and high school level, where they're, how do we get along with other people? How do we stay healthy for a lifetime? And then really continue that at the high school level and give them options and choices and hope that they're going to find something that they can love to do and stay active and healthy for a lifetime.
And I think that addition to the CAN curriculum is great. There's no CAN curriculum that fits us perfectly, maybe not even very well. So the more modifications we can make to be of the interest of our students, great. Keep the homegrown, call it the Waterloo core.
I'm taking that note.
All right, any other questions or comments before we vote?
Thanks for everything that you do, guys.
Yeah. Look for the great show of support tonight, from a lot of you in the audience.
Yes, that's fantastic.
I do have a question. Would you guys be in support of more gym?
Yes. Yes.
I had to ask.
It has to answer. It would require more staffing, but yes.
I mean, I was just up there thinking, so I'm stuck on this 6 weeks of gym for a year, and then we don't have any recess either, correct? Okay. All right. Thank you.
We can totally talk public policy another time.
With that, before you guys all go, could you guys introduce yourself, please? I just put a note to Pam. I go, are there no females? But they are. So please introduce yourselves.
And tell us your school.
And tell your school.
Yes.
All right, I'm Caleb Grant, Central Middle School, and just to add on to Laos, we do use the community things like on Tuesday next week we are going to Big Woods Lake, so we're doing the kayaking, the fishing, and archery with the kids. So we do use community things, kind of like Joanne said as well. So
perfect. Thank you.
I'm Linda Garrison. I'm at Lou Henry Elementary, and our Spark curriculum does a great job. We've got a few new PE teachers coming in next year. Gives them a good foundation and a good start with that too. That keeps us all cohesive that way.
Dave Getman, Waterloo West. I just want to let everybody know here that we have like 17 to 20 activities that we do every semester.
Wow.
So every 3 or 4 days we have a brand new activity where we introduce a lesson, we go over it, and there's not another school like this. I mean, when you're having Expo, East, and West doing all those activities, there's no other school like it. Okay? So I just want everybody to know that. And strength and conditioning, a lot of the kids that aren't in sports, that helps them even more. Because it makes them positive, they feel better about themselves, and some of the kids in there, that's going to be their lifetime sport.
Yep.
So that has been huge for us.
My son knew nothing until you had Clayton.
Yes.
And now he works out on his own. He's still got biceps.
I know.
So,
It's so fun to see change.
but he still talks about you. So, a good way. So thank you.
Must specify.
I'm Justin Decker at Hoover Middle School, and I do want to address the spacing issue and the equipment issue. When we developed this curriculum, we did develop it so all middle schools could do the same activities. So it did take into account the space and equipment. But if you want to add on, you can. In the middle school weight room and weightlifting, I know a guy if we get there, so.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Wolverton, and I teach at East High School, and I helped Joanna get all of this together. It was kind of crazy.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brad Mays. I teach at West. Corey Arnsdorf. I teach at Irving Elementary, and everybody spoke really eloquently about, you know, the needs that we have, and I wanted to say thank you to all of you for the questions that you guys are asking and the way that you're presenting it. Like, I can feel it, and I'm sure my colleagues can too. Like, we truly appreciate you asking those questions, and not only just that, but like caring. Like, I can tell, and I'm sure they can too, that we can see that you really care about the kids' education, and physical education to all of us is the most, you know, one of the most important things that school needs, and the kids need more of it. And so thank you for all of you for your time and consideration.
And thank you for the cool stuff you've done.
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In terms of technology, would it benefit all levels if they had personal monitoring of physical activity that you've been championing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lyle. It would, on any level. It doesn't matter what level it is. Like heart rate monitors, you know, we'll have online resources when we get the Spark curriculum. We'll have app, you know, resources. But it truly is amazing because some of these teachers that are talking about like trying to get physical education or activity outside that, some of our, like the IHT heart rate monitors I have, are phenomenal because they can not only just track the progress that they're in PE, but it can be used as a system to check out, and kids can be active at home and get active, you know, activity levels from the house. You know, so we can see and we can monitor that, and it not only just gives us this information, it gives parents this information. They can send emails out to them. There's just so many applications that can be used for. I mean, and not only did, you know, I use it for the classroom in PE and physical education, but I use it for SEL. I use it for mental health. I did it with the third grade classroom and self-regulation techniques. They can, you know, look at their heart rate monitors and decide, you know, where are they at, like feeling-wise. So there's just so many different ways that we can use technology in PE that are untapped and we haven't used yet. So great question.
So it could also help document the so-called summer sports.
Yeah, and you can be on so many levels. Like, and I think sometimes too we look at, you know, oh, they weren't like as active as they should have been. You know, like how can we find ways to be more active? And sometimes we can look at it even not only just like how can we make them more active, but like, is this activity what the kids need? Individualize it for them. Like maybe this activity wasn't as, you know, as active as we thought it would be. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I just read a article in my alumni magazine. So I'm a University of Kentucky graduate, and I had a nice article on this. Alumni have built an app that you form teams and run around the community, and like when you run for a certain area, you claim it for your team, and if somebody else goes back through, they kind of reclaim it. Some type of, it was kind of neat. Like, wow, that'd be, you're kind of like forming little groups, and you kind of, you know, as you run through the area, and it kind of maps it for you, and I'm like, huh.
Like capture the flag.
Yeah. No. At Irving, we actually have a run club where they have ID badges, kind of similar to what you're talking about, and can be used at home, but it's really cool because they'll get IDs scanned and they individualize it as their name, but it keeps track of like how many miles they walked, like the areas they walked, how many days did they come. Once again, parents get emails to say that they're being active, but it can also be used to like do fun like tracking of distances and how far did you go. And like for Irving, it was amazing because it keeps track of everybody. And we had, I think last year when we did it, we had somewhere in attendance like 400 and maybe 60 kids around there, and we had 425 kids participate, and that's before school starts. Like they don't have to be there. That was something that's before school starts, and then shows that these kids are showing up just to come to this exercise club and track their progress, you know, see how they do and like get excited about it, and they're on this run club board, so it's pretty amazing.
How far is the farthest kid this year then? How far is your farthest gone?
One kid, so once again, this is only 15 minutes in the morning. One kid had exercised over 220 miles with 15 minutes in the morning throughout the year. So, and I think as a school, I had this little marker where it showed Waterloo, Iowa, traveling to the Rockies, and then Pacific Ocean, and then to Hawaii. And we had traveled all the way to Hawaii as a school, like over 3,000 miles of exercise that we got to, you know, monitor and track. So,
yeah, I did something like that with Lou Henry several years ago. I was running 50 miles or something, and yeah, it was something like that.
During recess runners.
Yeah, exactly, I remember that.
We had some girls that ran down to Cedar Rapids and back, so
Thank you.
I'm Andy Bremer. I do the weightlifting classes at East High. And this is the second time I've been here with Dave last spring, and I can't thank you enough for the new equipment.
Good.
When I started, we would have weights laying all over the weight room, benches pulled out. Now the kids know when they come in, the room's going to look one way, and when they leave, it's going to look another. And I think we're getting more strength gains this semester than we did last year combined.
Wow.
So the new equipment has really motivated my classes to lift and lift every day that they're assigned the lifts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Keandre Armstrong, PE teacher over at Expo.
Do the Expo kids have a weight room?
Yes, we got donated some of Wes's equipment, so we got some stuff.
It's a start. It's a start. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody came to mic? All right. Well, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 7-0. Motion carried. Thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it. All right. Next item, Exhibit J, would be the IXL Learn Adoption for Secondary ELA and Math Classrooms. The recommendation is the Board of Education approves the purchase of IXL Learning at the cost of $98,645. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you. All right, Sharice, this is you.
What a night.
Oh, what a night.
Oh, what a night. Well, first I want to, thank you very much for that joint agreement. I know you didn't want to talk about it, but we're really thoughtful about that joint agreement on what concurrent courses we're going to offer and why among those 4 different buildings, and also offering summer courses for kids through Hawkeye has a grant, so that's free of charge. We don't pay anything, and kids can just have that opportunity to populate more summer college courses. So thank you. We really were thoughtful about why, and I don't know, I think you've talked a little bit about it, but we also took a lot of the CTE and made them non-concurrent. So if you look at the list, it is a different list than what we've requested in the past. And we did that because our evidence showed that we had kids that want to go into the workforce, and we really needed to address everybody. And with work-based learning, that's really happening. So thank you. We're being thoughtful and specific and looking at evidence to determine what we need. Also, second, just so you know, yes, we do have a policy for academic exemption and athletic exemption. It does come out of the Iowa High Schools Athletic Association. And I'll send the policy to you tomorrow so you can see how that's structured, as well as the graduation requirements. And we also have a community wellness class that I'll send to you that's really lovely. And similar to what you talked about, Lyle, is kids, their senior year, can opt to do something outside on their own, and we connect it back to one of the PE instructors at the school, and they get credit that way. So I'll send all that to you. All right, and now...
And you don't have to use a class period for that?
No, the kids figure out what time they're going to use it. We had kids that went to skating club after hours.
Really?
So they left the school and went to skating club, and it met the requirements, and then they'd connect with a PE teacher. It's called Community Wellness, and it's lovely. We have so much. The more we know.
Thank you.
We have so much. Speaking of so much, let's talk about this. So real quick, I'm going to just tell you the history. This year, we had funding. And in Ed Services, we talked a lot about what do we have to help with what we would consider unfinished learning, sometimes called skills gaps, but I think unfinished learning tells conceptually another understanding for some of those kids by the time they got to middle and high school. They really did hit that, spring break and going into the next school year where it cut into the amount of instruction and the standards that were met. So we had funding, and we said, let's be creative, let's be inventive, and I have been so fortunate this year supervising the instructional coaches, math and literacy coaches at the secondary. They're rocking. They are rocking people. The teachers are rocking. It's been an awesome year, but they're the ones that brought it to me and said, Sharice,
there's this diagnostic tool, and we didn't have a diagnostic. And we also couldn't put on some of our teachers trying to identify standards, gaps, or unfinished learning that was 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? So a lot of our teachers were very skilled at identifying if a student had a gap within a year, and we have curriculum that really helps with supplemental within a year, maybe even 2 years. But our secondary, being in this role the last year and a half, never had a diagnostic tool to really tell us where kids were with math and ELA gaps or unfinished learning. So IXL is pretty cool. It aligns the new ELA and math adoptions that we are already board approved, and then it links this skills practice. And when you do the diagnostic, it sets the student at where their gaps were, and it starts them there so they can save face. They can do some skills practice on their own time. They can get caught up with those skills gaps, and this year we piloted it to really see if it was worth the investment. You can see what the number is there for 1 year purchase. And I decided this year to go 1 year at a time because I really want evidence before we duplicate anything. And we started with piloting. We started to look at the teachers that really piloted it with integrity, and we have some here tonight on how they used it. And even though ISASP is preliminary and we'll be getting that information coming out in June, we can already start to see some of the correlation between kids who really use that IXL to get caught up to their skills, and it showed where they were with either not yet proficient, or advanced. So there's a complete connection between the ISASP standards through the IXL and the new adoptions, my perspectives in illustrative math. So we've used it in really inventive ways this year, from kids who really struggle with gaps to extensions for kids who have already met that. Using it at home as skills practice. And one more thing you may or may not know, when we really explored standards-based grading for math this year, and ELA we're working on that focus right now. We have a standards-based grading ELA group. It really exposed us to where the standards and the skills that kids really maybe was unfinished learning or missed, and what we need to do to target it on that. And we remove the unnecessary things like your grade isn't dependent on if you came prepared. That's not learning, that is 21st century skills. And if you're not teaching a 21st century skills class, you shouldn't be measuring that. We really looked at standards as a focus, so it wasn't if you bring a box of Kleenex, you get extra points. That's not equitable. So when we did that, it exposed us to kids who really, truly were struggling with those foundational standards. And IXL was the diagnostic tool to give the teachers and the student a better sense of, wow, I missed that learning in 4th grade and now I'm a 10th grader. And so they can practice on their own, save face. We're thinking of ways we can bet it in-school suspension is just kind of a part of more academic practice for students. So that's the background, that's where we're at today. And we have champions here. I got Mike Bass and Becky Wilden. I call them my big fish, Bass and Red Snapper. And they actually went and did IXL training, and they have been rolling it out with our teachers. They've been phenomenal. And they're going to do a quick little presentation. I know it's getting late, but I want you to see it. You should be able to see it up on the monitor, and we have it behind you. And I'm going to let them take over because they've really been the ones that supported it. And then I have teachers here that you can talk to because it's all about the teachers. Here we go.
First off, she is talking us up a lot for what we do. I'm currently the math coach for all 4 middle schools. When we brought this in, and you guys have this in front of you, we did a printout of a diagnostic for 3 different students, all 7th grade students. So you're going to see the first one is an on grade level student, the second one would be a below grade level according to the diagnostic, and then the third one would be an above grade level. So starting with the on grade level student, I'm just going to highlight a few things here. Number and operations. You'll see that this student has 4 recommended skills, 1 8th grade, 1 6th grade, 1 7th grade. We're seeing that even though that they're saying they're ready for 8th grade, there's still those fundamental gaps down there that we need to start filling back in. And it could be just simply because they were sick the day that that was taught. Could be, as everybody loves to say that word, COVID year, that it could be. But you can see where every single one of them is going to have something on grade level, off grade level, or above, depending on the student, and it is personalized. So that's the on grade level. If I go to the below grade level, which is the second one you have,
This student, still a 7th grade student. If you see the overall math level, that's saying that they're about halfway through 4th grade level when it comes to math, which tells us that there are some significant gaps in there. And it automatically assigns them recommended skills that they can just go on to on their own or with teacher support. You'll see throughout there, geometry might be a 3rd grade level, but then we're almost 5th grade at fractions. So that was a big highlight for that student as well.
Wait, so they go on to it where, using the curriculum we have, it would go all the way back?
We're going to show you where it ties into the curriculum.
Sorry.
Yeah. But these are activities that are already on IXL that will tie into IM as well.
Got
But Wooden wants to say one thing right quick.
Well, and just specifically in a connection to this below grade level example here, some of our students who are below grade level are students with IEPs. And so our strats have really found a lot of benefit here in determining goal areas for students. They're able to be much more targeted in some of the areas that they need to focus on, and they have data to back it up and know where some of these big skill gap areas are. So it helps our strats provide some of that more diagnostic information for goal setting. And some strats gave me some information they wanted me to pass along to you because they were not able to be here tonight. But they said that IXL has provided diagnostic tools broken down by skills to help design goals and target instruction, assessment data for IEP meetings, visual for parents, students, admin, teachers to see where they are in each math strand. It's interconnected with the curriculum, which we'll show you in a little bit here, to be used with pre-teaching, reteaching, helps with that reassessment process that directly ties into our standards-based grading. Engagement tools such as like group jams. I'm not sure, I don't know how far we're going to go into some of this stuff because we don't want to take too much of your time tonight, but there's some really cool group jam opportunities where you can like do interactive teaching. So it's not just you go sit down and you do this program, which is sometimes what I think people can perceive it to be. If it's used with integrity and in the way in which it's supposed to be used, and you're utilizing all of these functions along with it, those group jams are highly interactive for students and help the teacher teach those concepts, and then they can see the progress of their students as well. There's live classroom functions where you can monitor your classrooms in real time to see how the progress they're making. If they're missing multiple questions in a row, it flags you so that you can stop by that student's desk and say, hey, let's look at some of these questions you've gone through. You've missed the last few. Let's see where maybe there's a gap in your understanding. They have leaderboards where those are like kind of like competitions that you can set up based on various different ways. And what the Strats really enjoy is that it's very inclusive for students, depending upon how you have it set up. I mean, it could be focused on growth, it could be focused on lots of different things, not just proficiency, because some of our students are far from proficient and they would never obtain that proficiency at that time. So that growth towards proficiency is really something that it focuses on as well. And I've already said it addresses specific IEP goal areas as well. So just wanted to put that special education piece in there.
When do they take it? When do they take this assessment? Like at the beginning, at the middle, at the end?
Yes to all.
Okay.
The diagnostic is really cool in that it's something that they update constantly. It's not a static, like you only take it in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. That's kind of like typically how we look at assessment is like beginning, mid, and end. This is like continuous. So what we ask our teachers to do is to update the diagnostic. IXL recommends weekly. We say at the bare minimum every other week is kind of what we're saying. So what that means to update it, it's not a huge time-consuming thing. So initially when they take the assessment, it's about 45-ish minutes in length to get the initial assessment. Once they've taken the initial assessment, 2 weeks later, they update it. If they spend approximately 10 minutes on updating their diagnostic, that's all they need to keep it up to date. And then it'll do his thing, and it'll help identify some of the new gap areas and the new learning that they've taken place, and you'll watch their needle move. So it's ever changing. Ever changing. Yep.
And then the last one I want to just kind of quickly hit on before we go to the website is that above grade level. One thing I want to point out with this student is when you look at it, they're somewhere between a 10th and 11th grade level. They're not pinpointed completely. This is still a 7th grade student. We needed to know how to engage this student who is that far ahead as well. So this helps us kind of identify where we could say, all right, well, this kid is 7th grade, but they might be ready for some geometry topics or maybe some more depth into the current material that they're using.
And that's what you've been looking for, Lyle, was for them to be able to work it, to continue to be challenged as they get ahead, right?
And that's one reason why we're looking at this, because it's not just to help close the gap that we have or to get rid of that achievement gap, but it's also to keep pushing students forward. The next thing we want to talk about was kind of the website that they were on. So IXL has what they call skill plans. With the skill plans, it does have our textbooks involved with it. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Computer's running a little slow, my apologies. And if I scroll down, you'll see it has all of these textbooks. It even has our elementary curriculum, which we're not here for today, but it does have it involved with it. So under IM, we can go in and we see that it has kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, all the way up to algebra 2. Let's say that I'm in a 7th grade class. I'll go ahead and click on 7th. Today we're in Unit 4, lesson, let's go 10. Tax and tip word problems. So it has problems built in with it according to what lesson they are on that day. So it's an additional resource, and it also has things that they can consider there as well. So if I go into, I'm just going to pick this one because I was there. As it loads up, the first page that they're going to come to, it does have learn with an example. So if they click that, they can see an example just like the problem that they're about to have. The other thing is it has a quick video that could also help students when they are on their own. So they'll have access to this at home if they wanted to work on it at home. And they could just watch a quick 3 to 5 minute video that will also help explain the problem. They can also, this is a progressive software, kind of what ISAS is eventually getting to where it starts them at an easier level. And then as they get them right, it moves them to a more difficult level. So some of them have 2 levels, some of them have 5, but they will all have more than 1. So it starts them out kind of basic and then builds them up to see how they can get to one spot to another.
So this is online platform here. You're showing kids who could be going in and working on this. So how would you handle a student here that has a IEP in reading, they have a word problem that is, he may not struggle in math, but he struggles in reading and can't get there by just using a web program?
I mean, that's a great question. So this is where I was going to show this next, but you led me straight to it, which I appreciate. So down here at the bottom, it says work it out. If they're not feeling ready, it actually leads them to a type of problem that would get them to there. So like percents and numbers of money amounts. So it's taking the word problem out of it and starting them a little bit smaller. And allowing them to get their percent of change. So it actually has that built in to where if you're not ready for one, you can go down to the bottom, click it, and it will take you to something that's a prior knowledge to help you build up to it.
There's no option for it to read the question out loud?
There is. You would have to have it set up. The teachers can do that.
Okay.
It's not set up, so in the options you would have, the teacher could set it up by student. It also has a Spanish function as well, so it'll translate everything to Spanish. So it would have both of those. And then it also has lessons down here. If say that they're an MTSS, a student struggling, the MTSS teacher can actually pull up a lesson and go through it with the student. And it's built in there to where they don't have to come up with something themselves.
So this is where they're finding, if they're seeing these, it's in this, then, is that what you're talking about?
So they can, there's multiple ways to do it. So like what we did is we went through the curriculum to find these right now.
Yeah.
But the diagnostic, those are the same types of activities. It's just specialized to that kid.
So do they get this where they can just click on that? Is that what it looks like?
So like if they'll have the PDF too.
Perfect.
So like if I go and click on this, it'll take me right to that activity as this, technically as me because I'm the one logged in.
That's so cool.
So it'll have it all there and they don't have to worry about going to the website, finding it. Yeah. They'll also have access to it on the website too.
Is this a tool they could access over like the summer if they need it to more learning on their own?
this?
We didn't, so, for the 1 year, the way that we have it set up, we didn't do it for this summer, because if we were going to spend that for the summer use, I wanted us to have a pretty good plan. And it was a lot of money if kids were just going to be sprinkling with the use. But if we adopt it this year and we start to see the momentum we've already seen with those who have piloted it, I want it to be a year-round, and then I want to be more thoughtful about like middle school, summer school, and that this could be some IXL practice and then get in and do some authentic experiences with kids. Because it's right at their level, whereas, as you probably know, E2020 is set at the grade level standard, and it has very little opportunity for a student who's 3 or 4 years behind because of unfinished learning. It only sets about within a year of maybe skills gaps or unfinished learning, where this one starts everybody at their entry point so they can save face and work at their pace, which is something we haven't had. Right.
So like I was going to say, like if I'm a 7th grade teacher and I have a certain skill or concept that I'm trying to teach my students, I have access to grade level activities I can push out to my students, but not all of my students sitting in front of me are at grade level or ready for that piece. So this helps us differentiate for what they need. So we're able to dial back in those learning progressions of where they're at and what they're ready for in their next step, and we're able to tailor it a little bit more towards what they specifically need. So I can assign a grade level activity for all of my students, but I can also take a cluster of 5 students and dial it back a few notches and assign that piece to them as well, so they can be working on different things in small groups. So that really helps us with our workshop approach in the classroom as well, and meeting specific needs of students in a quick and efficient way. So they can work on some of these things independently too, but like I said, there's also that group jam opportunity where I notice that my classes, like if I have my live classroom up and running and I notice that I've got a good smattering of students that have got a lot of red, which red indicates that they're missing multiple questions in a row, I need to stop. We need to talk about what we're doing here. So then we have it projecting up on the board, and it's like a teaching moment where I push out access to all students to look at the exact same problem that I'm looking at, and we can go over that on the board together, do a teaching moment, and then resume. So very interactive in that respect as well. Oh, okay. Where's the, oh, it's in here. Okay. So back into the learning section, he already showed you the IM, and I'm going to try to get in here. For literacy, it also has access to the My Perspectives curriculum, and just got to find it here real quick.
And just so you know, if the teacher pins these, the kids won't have to scroll all the way through. It would be at the top of their page.
Yeah, so where...
We have access to all of it, that's why.
Oh, thank you.
Because it's
Thank
still
you.
in its pilot phase.
All right, so again, I'm just going to go into 7th grade here. I mean, I could show you any one of the units, but it's all coordinated by whatever unit we're doing. So if I'm doing unit 1, in my whole class learning, if we're looking at the selection called a simple act, I know that I've got certain lessons that I follow within my curriculum with my perspectives, but those pieces that I do, if I need extra additional support for that beyond what my curriculum provides, then I can come in here and grab some of these pieces, and I can also assign these pieces. So these activities are not from my perspectives. These are IXL created, but they are created to follow up with specific skills that are being taught within our curriculum. So they kind of marry with each other. But again, these would be at grade level skills. For some students, we would want to dial that back to meet their needs. So that's just an example of the My Perspectives correlations that we have as well.
So,
yep.
With this then, would you be able to use the standard-based grading to do language arts and reading, or is there still is it too nuanced, or does this work?
I definitely, I mean, I foresee this as being like additional skills practice. So this is like things beyond our curriculum that we might ask our students to do to prepare for maybe an upcoming assessment, or to get some further practice in, an extension. Along with those textbooks, if you look here, it also, I don't know how much time we want to spend on some of this. But I will just say, the Iowa State standards, if you click in there, you can search by standard and get skills that correlate to the standards. We can search by our curriculum and get correlation there. There's also some really cool test prep materials in here. I'll put a big plug in for like ACT, SAT, ISASP. So our own assessment is in here as well. You'll see ISASP is in here. So if I'm a 7th grade teacher and I'm prepping my students for ISASP, which I should be doing all year, not just the weeks prior to ISASP, but ISASP here, I can go by domain. Right now I'm in math, so if I toggle to language arts, you can see.
And this is included, all the different, all of these
Yes,
different.
all this is included.
Okay.
Yep. I think we're looking at purchasing math and language arts. Math and language arts.
So I mean, all the different tests, they assess all the different, testing types.
Yep.
Science is not.
But these are specific to ISASP, so you can see specific skill sets, and you can preview those as well for some of those specific practice points there. What's really cool about the ACT and SAT stuff there, so like let's say a student takes the ACT or SAT and gets a specific score and they're not overly pleased with their score. Let's say they get a 19 on the ACT, but they really wanted to get something in the mid-20s. They're able to plug in their score and get feedback. They're able to kind of add their information in, get feedback on areas that they probably need to work on in order to bump their score from a 19 to a 23.
I wish I'd had that.
Right. I saw this and I was like, oh, golden for my high school kids. I'm like, this is great. So then they have specific guidance on what they need to be practicing and looking for in order to move their score from a 19 to a 23.
Awesome.
So there's really some really cool things for high school as well in here, as far as that kind of large-scale test planning.
How is this different, or does it go along with Edgenuity?
Yeah, Edgenuity is different as far as, I mean, it's a standards-based platform. So that one's just set to the grade level standards within that content area, and it doesn't give them much opportunity for skills practice at their level. And so unfortunately, fortunately, we're going to be working with some of our instructional leaders, coaches this year, to look at the blended model of using Edgenuity, not only at Expo, but at the high schools. Because right now, it defaults to go back and look at it again, go back and look at it again. But if I'm a student who has unfinished learning from 3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
and nobody has identified the fact that I missed that standard 3 or 4 years ago, and it impacted the amount of understanding I had after that, but if I could have gone back and practiced that, I could have been able to catch up to grade level standard. This speaks to that. So even working with Edgenuity, or E2020, I've got a group of instructional coaches that we're going to embed in like a menu where they can then go into iExcel and do the skills practice as one of their options and get caught up on that standard. So then it'll be more didactic and not just go back in and do it again, go back in and do it again, go back in and do it again, which is what put us at a place for some of our middle school kids who use that as their platform, that then they went into the same platform, and if there's no face-to-face teaching or an opportunity to know how far back that unfinished learning goes, this does that. This is the diagnostic we have not had.
So when you are doing this, are you have a particular audience in mind who are going to be able to have access to this? Because it seems like the Expo students would be like the first, I would imagine, to try this with Edgenuity.
Yes, and now I have a lit coach over at Expo, and she's going to work with our blended learning kind of instructional team and the Expo staff and come up with additional ways that they can use that within like what they're using for Edgenuity and do more face-to-face with blended learning. And so we're looking at it on a bigger scale. We're just waiting for you all to approve it. And then we have a working doc of what that year rollout's going to look like across all the high schools and middle schools, including shoring up E2020, special ed support, taking it to standards as skills practice at home. So that we have right now quite a number of ways that we're thinking about using it, and ways that we've already learned have been effective. So I just want these, wonderful teachers back here. Like Johanna says, it's about my bedtime. So if you want to talk to them, I've got a high school and 2 middle school teachers that just from their perspective on how they really embraced using this pilot this year and saw the gains. So is it okay if I have them talk real quick? Okay. Crew? Thank you.
Yeah, we're a team.
Introduce your name and what school you are.
I'm Johanna Nanke. I teach 9th and 11th grade English at West High.
I'm Jacob Elmquist. I teach 6th grade at Bunker Middle School.
I'm Amanda Cohn. I teach 6th grade language arts at Hoover.
So
Go ahead. Yeah.
I guess I don't know if I really have anything new to add that they haven't already touched on, but a few ways that I've used IXL in my classroom, like I've just never really had something like this that's easy to read and understand. Like, sure, you get your ISASP results back, and I'm like, cool, a kid got a 545, and I'm like, is that on grade level? Right. But this is like super easy. So like, we saw somebody that was like 820, so cool, that means they're 8th grade, a little bit into the year. So that's super easy for us to understand, and we've just never had anything that's really like, here's how a kid is doing on this level, and here's what grade level they're on. And I think that's really eye-opening. Sometimes I get kids that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. All right, here's what we need to work on. And they get to like see those progressions of standards. So sometimes I think when they see that, like the areas that they need to work on, I think that really actualizes it for them. So
So what kind of gain did you see this year having that tool as opposed to last year? Where they can zero in on what they need to learn?
Like I said, I never really have had a tool like this. So I don't know if I have anything to compare beforehand. Does that make sense?
I just meant like without this, how this compares to not having the tool.
So I can speak to within IXL, it shows you the growth that students make. So this year I've had students that have grown 200 points. So two years in IXL. I love that it is individualized. The recommendation wall that I don't know if you pointed out, they can click on that and it shows not just one subject but all, and within that they can pick the area or skill that they want to work on. So oh. So within this, when they scroll down, okay, so.
Because it's a district, you're going to have to click one of the grades.
So they can decide on what they want to work on. This is just for 6th grade, but if a student was at a level 410, it would be accommodating that level for language arts or math, depending on what they scored. I also appreciate that I can, since it syncs with Infinite Campus, for my MTSS, I can group kids based on the skills that they're lacking. It automatically shows me possible small groups that I can use, and then the similar areas that they're lacking in.
I will just say for me, what I like most about it is like the community aspect that it has. I feel like a lot of times parents will come and ask, how do I help my kid at home? And I'm like, well, you can read more, with them, and you can watch them read, but a lot of this is when they miss something, it breaks it down. It says they missed it because of this, and this is explaining a little bit more. So that's extremely helpful, and I think parents bought onto that a little bit more and thought that was much more helpful, and I think the kids liked it too.
Yeah, that's great. Going home and not being able to teach your kid 4th grade math is very disheartening. So.
I think that on that note, like using it with parents, it's also really helped me guide like conference conversations. Like, here's what we need to work on. Here's where we are, instead of just being like, she's great, we have finals coming up, and like I've made like documents and like, okay, so here's links to skills that we've practiced and stuff like that. So it's a really good way for them to practice where they are. It shows them like a SMART score, so it shows the kids like where they are, what they need to work on. So
Super helpful.
What I don't see and what I haven't heard yet, hopefully it's coming, is there a diagnostic test for math fluency, and specifically math facts?
So, a lot of that, the math that's in there does align to the standards with, and it ties into a lot of the math fluency, in fact, yes, but it's more aligned to standards. So you have your grade levels here, obviously. If I go into the skill plan with the Iowa standards, it can go back to pre-K to help build those knowledges as well, or excuse me, kindergarten, to build up the math fluency and math facts. So you have all of the domains that they use, and then into that. Do you have any
Well, the math,
additional?
I mean, at the middle school and high school level, it is, the assumption with our standards is that they have those
Yep.
mastered at that point in time. We know that not all of our kids
Nope.
do.
You know that a lot of your kids don't.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay, so why wouldn't this go back and provide math facts?
It does go, it does. They
can go all the way back.
It does
Yeah,
go back.
so like even
So
though
it
we're
has
getting
time
it for,
test, the traditional time test, you do 100 problems in a minute? Is that in here?
no, you can set it up to say like they stop at a minute, but you can't, like it doesn't actually have that time test, no.
So, like, if you look here, like on the math, like you, you could drill in, like, if it's an addition issue, then you can drill into it, like, by topic. But I mean, you would probably look at their diagnostic to see where that information is telling you that they're at, where in the learning progression that they're at. But if they're having issue adding 2-digit numbers, up to 5-digit numbers, and so forth, if that was the issue that the student was being presented with, then you find the skills that kind of match in with where their issue is.
So there's no proficiency, fluency evaluation.
Not timed like what you're asking.
It's not like a drill and kill, like, speed
Yeah,
piece.
there's
no.
an article in Education Week I would offer you to read. It's the May's edition. Students need to know their math facts, what schools can do to help. One of the points is, a lot of teachers don't teach math facts because they're boring. The point of this is, they're boring to the teacher, they're not boring to the student. It's particularly if you have every student, and we've got the technology today, to take the test 2 days from now, show progress, take the next test, progress. In terms of unfinished learning, it's math facts, period. Do you guys teach math facts? I mean, time test?
They do at the elementary level, but not once they get to secondary, no.
I'm talking real math facts, where you can't, it's too fast for tally marks and fingers.
Yes, so that's built into the Bridges curriculum. I was elementary math coach last year, so I
Yeah.
got to see it a little bit. But now that I'm in secondary, there's not the math facts part of it like
So
that.
how often did they take their math facts test?
I know they had at least 3 assessments per unit, but that's not to say that each one was on there.
So it's not an everyday thing for
Nope.
the first 2 minutes of class?
Nope.
Shouldn't it be?
Well, if a lot of the kids, so again, this one's for secondary, and if a lot of the kids, if they take their own IXL diagnostic and it sets them to go back that far where maybe it's some kind of numbers concept that does impact fluency, then it would, similar to what the coaches said, it can show you where those gaps are if a student's gone back that far. You know, if it's like first grade or kindergarten where they have those gaps, and then you can do a skills practice within that would be equivalent to what you're talking about, because they have computation and they're going to have formulas. And I think what are you talking about kind of like the flashcard and finish this many problems in 1 minute, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could still do something. Do I agree that we should have fluency of number? Of course I do. So I think within this system, though, for the kids that it would go back that far, they probably kids maybe with IEPs, maybe some of our middle school kids, and then you can set those other skills within that could be something that is about math fluency. Yes.
Could be, but it's
Yeah.
not. Unfinished learning should include math facts.
For how
But
many of
this
the,
doesn't do that.
well, how many of the kids that have taken this needed to go back that far?
There's not many, no.
Yeah, that would be going back to probably standards from maybe kindergarten and first grade.
Yeah, first.
First grade, first or second grade.
But they didn't learn in first or second or third or fourth, and now they're in middle school, and they still don't know their math facts.
Well, it does look at the domains within, like, right now, the math domains and the math standards, and so it really focuses on those. And are there elements of fluency within those standards? Of course there would be, but it wouldn't go back just for that unless it's a very particular kid that goes all the way back to kindergarten and first, and it might, you could build a lesson on fluency. But as far as some of the kids, they have fluency of numbers, so they're getting into further understanding of math, and that's where it would probably set it to.
All right.
Just a quick question. So
Sorry.
the-
It sounds like a good program in many respects, but
It's going to be good.
I am just appalled. Students don't know their math facts, and we don't teach them. And therefore,
And can I, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a plug in. So there's a new feature that they just added called quizzes where you could set it up as teachers. It's not timed on there, but they could time it in class, and then they could have the same one every time. It could change the question, so it could be modified.
could, unless it's policy,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, because teachers don't like to do it.
Yep.
For whatever reason. But it needs to be done, and that's my bottom line. I just don't understand. You know, if you don't know math, you have a earnings ceiling, which means you have a wealth ceiling, which becomes highly inequitable. And the gap is they don't know their math facts.
Well, and probably for the purpose of this being secondary, looking at elementary curriculum and what would measure that would be different than this adoption, or using this digital platform, because it wouldn't necessarily, like I said, go back that far. And then the amount of skills that you can connect it to, like Mike was talking about, if you wanted to do something that helps with fluency, I'm sure there's probably something in there. It's just so vast. We haven't gone back that far. Most of our kids, we're looking at maybe 3 years, 4 years. The high school kids, maybe 3 or 4 years. Even the middle school kids for math, maybe 3 or 4, but not back to like kindergarten and first for some of those, maybe those foundational standards. So what it's showing is when you look at number sense and kids are conceptualizing number, that they're having success with further standards that would have assumed that there's some fluency understanding with math there. But again, I'm not versed in the Bridges Elementary curriculum, that would be Ryan. But as far as the capacity of this, we haven't really seen that somebody needed to go back to find that that was the gap. We haven't gone back, that hasn't gone back to a kid that's that far, but missing that much unfinished learning.
It's never too late to learn your math facts. That's my bottom line. That's
Right.
why I'm not going to vote for this, because it doesn't focus on math facts. I don't know how many times you need to make the point until the board says, learn your math facts.
You know what I
And we
just
can
thought
add
of?
it as a supplemental. I mean,
Yeah, you can go back and you can populate it with skills.
can we make that policy that we're going to add that?
This isn't an elementary platform, but yes, if there's something within the secondary where we could identify that a student really struggles with fluency, we could look at this system and we could match it with those skills and make it about facts and fluency. It could be in here. It could be
I just
within
don't
it.
want to, you know, we introduced whole language in the early 90s, and then 25 years later, when those kids were in the prime of their employment, guess what? Waterloo was voted the worst place, particularly for minorities, in the country. Because we had whole language. They didn't know how to read. They didn't graduate. In 1993, the graduation rate for black males was 28%. Okay? Is it any wonder that study came out 25 years later and said, guess what? What I don't want to happen is we refuse to teach our math facts now, and 25 years from now, guess what? They come out with a survey and said, Waterloo is the worst place in the world to live because their earnings are low, because they don't know their math, their unemployment is high, their incarceration is high. We don't want to repeat that. that's my point, and it all is based on math facts. I don't know why we refuse to recognize that.
Well, the good news is, this is really looking at the graduation rate for those kids who are sophomores and juniors, and we're realizing now, hey, there was some unfinished learning from 4 years ago in math and in ELA, and they can start working at their own level and getting closer to grade level standards. That's a goal. That's one of our district goals, and this will support that.
Thank you. Sincerely, thank you for all the work you do, but there's that one
I understand.
blind spot
I
that
understand.
I'm trying to get rid of.
I understand. And thanking the teachers and the coaches. They've really invested in this, and we appreciate that. And I understand your perspective, Lyle.
Just real quick, Sharice, just tell me the difference with this, looking at a kindergarten, K through 5th. How would this be different, and as far as what they have as options and being able to do math facts and things of that nature? What would we expect differently with the kindergarten level?
This isn't for elementary, is that what you're saying?
I'm asking, at some point, I'm assuming
well,
you're gonna bring that
so
to
what
us.
it can do is when they go in, they do their diagnostic. So let's say it is a 6th grader, and let's stick with math, right?
Or a 5th grader.
Pardon?
Or a 5th grader.
Well, we wouldn't use it with 5th graders because this is only going to be for middle and high school. This diagnostic?
Yes, but I'm asking if this was a kindergarten, K through 5th grade, how would it be different from?
I got you. It's very similar because it actually does the same alignment to Bridges. So to answer your point, I know they have other diagnostic tools at the elementary. We didn't have any diagnostic tool at the secondary, so quite often teachers were just assuming they might have this gap or this gap or this gap, but there really wasn't anything to be targeted to see how far back you go. Elementary has different diagnostic tools. I'm not as versed in them, but yes, if let's say this were to be an elementary adoption, again, since they use different tools, Ryan, I think, and Jen were pretty comfortable with the tools that they had, but I said we don't have anything at the secondary. And when we started doing standards-based grading, it made it obvious of the unfinished learning of how far back. And so if we wanted to set it to an elementary, absolutely. And it even has Bridges in here where we use it set to IM because that's the curriculum that we adopted, but it could be used the same way. So if there's a 5th grader using the same platform, setting it to Bridges, look at that diagnostic and realize that that student has 3 or 4 or 5 years of unfinished learning, and we can trace it all the way back to kindergarten, basic number sense, right? Understanding base 10, fluency, whatever that might be, it would do the same thing. It would set it, it would give a lesson, gets them at their level, helps them understand maybe what part of it they struggled with, teaching that part. There's videos to teach it. So again, it's just a well-rounded tool. We just happened to pilot it because we knew we didn't have anything at the secondary.
Okay, I have one last question, and this would be for how much time commitment is this with a student? So let's say the student's struggling in denominators 10 and 100, and you know they're struggling because they didn't have the foundation earlier. How much time are you committed as a teacher to focus on that one student with that skill, for example?
Yeah. Okay. So after the initial diagnostic, which would be about 45 minutes, it's pretty quick. So I just used a group jam yesterday with my students on common nouns. So we had the lesson pulled up on the board. I think I spent about 10-15 minutes with that group working on identifying the common and proper nouns. It gives an explanation even. With the small group, it automatically populates groups. So then it's just a matter of pulling them, and then I can take from the IXL or my own lessons. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
I'm getting an idea.
So this is only for secondary ELA, that for the language arts?
ELA and math. Middle school and high school, ELA and math.
Okay, but so it's not for other language arts, just the, never mind, I have it. My brain just had a meltdown, so I'm good.
That's all right.
So, I appreciate what this is doing. So one of the things in my life is, a lot of times what you don't know is what you was surprised to find out later on. Like, it'd been nice to know 5 years ago, and many times in my career, we come across, like, we learn as we go, it's like, you know, and we just didn't diagnose it, we missed something, we didn't have the data to support,
Right.
or justify even going after changes to make improvements. And I appreciate, you know, how, you know, we are focused on learning the standard. You know, I've had to adapt myself. I still would advocate more for, you know, these are great tools. I appreciate what it's doing here. Tied into standard, but on particular math, though, is that I appreciate what Lyle's saying on math facts, but on a higher level is I think kids need repetition. What I've learned in my engineering career was I've learned one problem. If I can't handle variations to that, I really don't know. I have to be able to adapt what I know to how's this a little bit different, but it's the same principle. And I worry a little bit that our secondary students, particularly high school, are not doing enough homework, so we don't get enough repetition to handle variation. And part of that, I think, is because they don't get scoring for traditional homework per se, and I think that should be, if I get on my soapbox here, that we need to add in, with the standard fifth grade, we still need a homework component to help encourage them to do more of this, because it takes practice to learn. It takes doing things over and seeing variations to really master something, and I've lived it, and, you know, I've struggled it, and had to overcome it, but unless you actually do it, and you just stare at a problem, oh, I know how to do that now, and I can get through one or two little statements. Well, maybe you might be able to handle one, but what if I changed it just a little bit? Can I handle that? So.
Well, and to your point, and Amanda, you can explain that too. A lot of these standards, like when we're getting smarter now and we're really targeting those priority standards that are recursive, because you're absolutely right. They come back and then you build upon them. It doesn't matter if it's stats and probability, if it's number sense, if it's geometric thinking, if it's algebraic thinking. There's something that is recursive and it keeps coming back. And for those kids that we're finding out with this diagnostic have unfinished learning, it might have been a very beginning understanding of that math standard back in 4th or 5th grade that didn't make sense. And once I had that time to skills practice and get caught up, that's where you see that fitting, that basic knowledge fitting into the next year understanding of basic understanding of that math to the next year. And that's that recursive part that we're able to identify with this that we couldn't before. So a lot of that is recursive, and you're right. We are looking at recursive standards too. It's not just one and done. We might have something that comes up in August that comes back around, and you build upon that math, you know, a month or 2 months later. And this only supports that. And then Mandy was going to mention something.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the recommendation wall. So when the students pick a skill, it is repetitive. So if they miss the question, it takes away from their SMART score. If they get it correct, then it adds to it. We tell them 80 points is like proficient, and then 100 would be mastery. So it does have that repetition, and it checks to make sure that they are understanding.
Yeah, I think that's great, but I think part of that, though, is the grading system doesn't really include something to influence kids to do that. I mean, unless a kid says, you know what, I get 10% for this, that's a letter grade for doing my homework, going and doing whether it's online or whatever platform, they may not do it. And you need that repetition, I think, to really get there.
And we can do, you know, not tonight, clearly, we're getting close to bedtime, but we can do a standards-based grading with the board and have the folks that have been doing that, so we can kind of talk about some of that core work. We have Matt Townsley from UNI who's working with our folks this year and getting much better at it. But I think we could have a board meeting alone on standards-based grading to that point.
I'll say I love it. My daughter, she keeps going back with, and I wish she had this in Algebra 2, or will they have it the next year? So she's going back and doing the test that she's not done as well as she wants on. So by the end of the semester, she's, you know, at a high A, because she can keep doing it till she knows it.
Yeah, you can recover any of that, any of those standards that you struggled with, and you can go back and skills practice. This is one more platform.
And this would, this would help even more to what you're missing. So I didn't like it at first. I love it.
Let's get to our implementation, Jay. We got this.
Okay, so great discussion. It was, no, seriously. So with that said, the Board of Education, can't get a motion to approve, sorry. Yep. Yep. So, all in favor for this recommendation?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, one with one nay. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming out, you guys. Appreciate
Right,
it.
guys, thank you.
Do you want to stay for the rest of the meeting?
It's,
I still haven't eaten dinner.
nor have we.
Yes, right. Should have brought
Okay.
a snack cart. Thanks, everyone, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Let's move on to Exhibit K, which is the instructional support program. The superintendent recommendation is the Board of Education approve the following resolution to participate in the instructional support program for the Waterloo Community Schools to be in effect from 2024 to 2025 fiscal year through 2028 through 2029 fiscal year. So good.
Second.
All right, thank you. So moved.
So office first read someone.
Jesse and Stacy. Yeah. All right, Michael, this is you.
Actually, page 58 and 59 are all part of that resolution.
Okay.
It's the explanation of, kind of repeated some of the stuff, Andia, that you read at the beginning.
Okay.
But it is going back to the basic school finance facts. When you look at how this all works, and there's a lot of variables to this, when I give my budget presentation in the spring, I tell you all the different components that make up the full budget. And since 1989, first enacted in 1992, the state allowed local boards to approve 10% of the regular program district cost, which is number of students times the cost per pupil. So yes, our total for that is around $8 million. And when they started this, of course that number was a lot lower at the time, but when they started this, it was designed to be a local decision for property tax of about 70%. And 20 to 25% state aid. Well, what the legislature did, because so many people, so many districts approved it, they froze the allocation. So when 100 schools were doing it, everybody got their 25% state aid. When it went to 300 schools, they prorated it, so then it started going down to 20 and 19 and 10, and in 2012-13 they eliminated it. So all there is the local property tax asking about the 70%. Actually, that's now shrunk to about 62%. That's why, by formula, it's $8 million, but what we can actually raise through this is 4.9. Because there's just a percentage that they allow in the aid and levy worksheet that has about 5 components to it that is way too complicated to try to comprehend now. But really, that's where we've been at for many years, that we get about 60% of what it could generate by the exact formula. And it was an opportunity for districts, and I will say districts can fund it by property tax or a combination of property tax and income surtax. So that's a choice by the district, but the state does not contribute anything to this decision. And when you look at the beginning of Exhibit K, it is a resolution to consider continuing in the participation in the instructional support program. And Waterloo started it in 1995, and we've been renewing it every 5 years since then. So we are running out in the 23-24 school year. So we have a year to approve it, but we usually do it early, and then it lasts for 5 years. It is also an option that any board can do it by voter approval for 10 years. Waterloo has never done that. I don't think many districts do that, because it's just a board action to continue taking advantage of that funding. And it's about almost, it's just a little under $5 million right now. And that can be used for any general fund purpose. There was a couple of exceptions, PEPL and special ed and whatever, that has its own funding, so that's not clouding the issue with what we do with this. I can't think of the right word, but so this is just a continuation for another 5 years for the board to take advantage of this local decision of, and we've always done it purely by property tax. And one of the questions I was asked today is, what kind of property tax rate does that generate? And the 10%, can that be changed? Well, the wording in the resolution is up to 10%, and this is for 5 years. So when there is a resolution to that effect, where it's over multiple years, it's really not fair for you as a board to dictate what the board in 5 years is going to do. So how it works is, every year when we approve the tax rate, you also approve, are we going to do 10, are we going to do 9, are we going to do something different than 10? We've done 10 for the whole time I've been here. So we're going on 15 years. So it's worth about $1.50 of property tax, but that's something we've had in place for over 10 years. So our tax rate is not going to go up because of this. It's just going to continue on a level that we've had for over 10 years.
And we're locked in for 5 years at that amount then?
For up to 10%.
Yes, yeah, 5 million.
So it could be changed every year.
Okay.
But if you approve the resolution as is with just property tax, you can't add income surtax to it later. You would have to wait for the next 5-year anniversary.
Okay.
Likewise, if you approve property tax and surtax, you can't eliminate one or the other halfway through. It has to be for the whole cycle, the whole 5-year cycle.
But it's embedded in our overall
It
tax
is.
rate of, what, 14?
1336,062.
Okay, so 1336, that's always, that's included it this year, and it's historically included it. So the only difference from this versus like not doing this and doing a cash levy is we get spending authority with this.
Yep.
So then we have full discretion.
Right. Yeah, I would highly recommend that's the way you keep health in your budget, is by taking the opportunity of all the authority issues that you can. You get, you don't just get cash in the bank, you get the authority to spend it. So the unspent balance, it affects that, and that's really the power of your budget.
All right. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote for this item, for this recommendation. So, Lyle?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Esther?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
India? Yes. 7-0, we all approve.
I think we're only
Six. I keep saying 7, sorry. You got
I know
it.
she's catching it.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Thank you. All right. We're getting there, people. And last, Exhibit L, which is the, what is this? Oh, administrator and administrative support salaries. The recommendation is the Board of Education approve the proposed salary increases for employees in the administrator and administrative supportive groups for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Can someone just explain a little bit about what average salary means and how that applies?
Yes. So the average of 3.24% would be that the total group of these employees' cost of their salaries would be going up by that amount. Now, I believe in the past that was done, put as an average in order to give flexibility to give different pay amounts to different people. That's not actually what we're recommending this year.
Okay.
So we're recommending a flat 3.24% increase for each individual in this, in these employee groups.
When you say you don't recommend it this year, does that mean this will be reevaluated in the future?
You know, it can be something reevaluated in the future if, you know, the board wants to. So right now, as I think Jared and I see it, there's no established criteria for how someone would get above average or below average. We've had several anecdotal conversations with people this year that got below average last year with no explanation as to why. I don't feel that's a fair way to conduct business, especially if, you know, we've got several or most of our people, or say all of our people, meeting expectations. You know, where do you draw that line as to what gets somebody above average or below average? So without that criteria in place, it's pretty subjective.
So speaking of our evaluations, how we do just meets expectations and does not meet expectations, is that something that's a state dictated way to evaluate, or is that something that we created?
So anyone with a license, so most administrators and teachers, you have to evaluate them on the standards. So for teachers, that's 8 standards, I believe now. For administrators, that's 10 standards. Teachers, at a minimum, is simply just a meets or does not meet standard, and it's each one of the standards. Administrators have a different evaluation tool, and there are 4 different criteria for each standard. And I can't name them off the top of my head, but that's something new within the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
So it is a continuum in that they each, you either do or don't, but it's based on how many you get, right? How many you meet within each category? Is that how you determine if they either meet or do not meet?
So with teachers, it's just a meet or do not meet.
But we're doing
right, and administrators, it's different.
Right.
So, you know, but I don't think there's any mathematical formula to say you are not proficient on 3 standards, which means you're not proficient on your whole evaluation. So I think
it could be used as far as raises, though, right? I mean, I'm not talking about today.
Right. I mean, we could use anything we want. Well, not anything. I shouldn't say anything. We could use a lot of different performance factors or criteria to determine pay increases.
Okay.
But right now, as Jared and I see it, we don't have any of that criteria in place.
Is that something that we can, I mean, have you used other tools in other places, or has this been the evaluation?
This is the first district in 5 that I've worked for that I am aware of that has some sort of performance-based pay for administrators.
It's the first of 4 for me, so.
It's very uncommon.
So 1 of 9.
So wait, I'm sorry, so they don't have any kind of...
Across the board.
It's always
You just
across
get
the
it,
board.
whether you're good or not?
Well, now, in some cases, like, I worked for a district where if you were not meeting certain aspects of your evaluation, they had a criteria set up that, we'll give you half of what the increase is as a cost of living increase, but that was a predetermined criteria that everybody knew about.
That's what I'm looking for next year, yeah.
Well, so in the past, if an employee was on a plan of assistance or weren't meeting those standards, then they weren't eligible for the raise across the board.
I'm not sure, because looking at some past years, let's say the average was 3%. I've seen people with a 0, with a 1.5, a 2, a 3. And I can't find any explanation as to why.
Right. It didn't show on
It wasn't everybody, right. We would, What I'm saying is, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there weren't, I'm not saying there weren't good reasons for it.
Right.
It's just,
and it could be, but what I'm saying is, in the past, if you were on a plan, then you weren't eligible to get anything. Is that still the case, or if you're if everybody across the board, if somebody's on a plan of assistance, are they still getting this 3.24?
we don't have anyone going in next year on a plane of assistance. I want to be careful how specifically I answer that in order to protect certain people's.
So is what I'm hearing here that the raise for all of them is not going to be tied to their evaluations?
Right.
Yes. Well, but they're so let's, and I don't want to speak to anyone's specific evaluation here, but say all evaluations are meeting standards next year, then the flat amount.
So what if we won't say specific names, this is a general conversation.
Right.
So what if they don't meet their evaluation?
That would be a decision that, Jared would have to make in terms of how to award or not award them something, but there is no criteria in place that we can find that's written, documented, shared with people ahead of time so that they know what to expect.
Yeah. That's the key point. I live under no surprises. Right now, if we were to change anything, it would be a surprise to our team.
But I'm just
There's been no
I'm
criteria
asking
laid
for
out.
next year. I'm sorry,
We
when I'm
can
looking
certainly-
at this, I'm looking for, we need to have something in place that makes sense. In other places that you worked, was it just as long as everybody had the meets, don't meet, if they had meet, they got the flat, there was no nuances within it?
Yes.
In the real world, though, there are.
I would be really offended, I think, if
you were really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I've seen somewhere, it could be you have a meets, not meets, or you have a developing. If you're new in your position and you haven't been there but 6 months, you're developing, so if you're not meeting it just means that you're not.
So I'm looking at the form that we're working with our team. It says does not meet standard developing.
Oh, there is a developing.
Meet standards effective. Meet standards highly effective.
Yep.
What's tricky about those is that they're subjective.
Yeah.
Still.
Wait, there's no artifacts. You don't use
artifacts
artifacts to go through each category?
You certainly can.
Have you evaluated the staff already, like the administrators and administrative?
It's not due until June 30th.
Ours are.
June 30th?
I've had the initial conversation. We've had the conversations with them. They're going to do self-evaluation first. This was communicated to them last week. And then during the first couple weeks of June, we'll be meeting to go over this.
So it sounds like something like this would be a lot less, work than maybe the way that it's been done before, individually, person to person. And I can understand that if the idea is that we're using less time on this to therefore use more time, with learning with kids, with what administrators, what you and these guys do with their time. But, just to say, we don't understand how it was done last year, we're going to do it this way, and everybody's going to get the same.
And Janelle, I guess what you're saying, I don't think that there was even, I think it was pretty arbitrary. So I don't think this is...
That's a leader's job.
I agree.
Most organizations have 5 criteria. Far exceeds, meets, needs improvement, and does not meet. All right. So they differentiate.
Yep.
The person that just shows up every day and doesn't get fired doesn't get the same raise as the person that takes on this be bold, creativity, public image, team player, dropout rate, all the things.
Grows all their staff.
All the extraordinary, all the things we want to improve. So giving everybody the same if they show up for work does not incentivize.
I think if somebody's just showing up for work here, they probably wouldn't be meeting expectations.
You
But I guess
you don't know that, though.
well, the evaluator would know that.
But we don't know that right now, because we haven't evaluated these systems.
I know internally that we do not have any people going on a plan of assistance next year for administrators, so.
All right, I
So
think,
that's our criteria, is if it's just, you're either proficient or your plan of assistance?
Yeah, and that kind of turns it into a binary sort of, yes/no thing,
Yes.
which, it's great to get a fantastic evaluation, but the real praise is money.
Yes.
The real praise is getting the bigger raise than other people, so it doesn't. Well, yeah.
Everybody.
Maybe not, but, man, I would be really upset. And also, what does an evaluation mean then?
Imagine if you got something less, but no explanation as to how it's been done in the past, so.
And that's what's happening.
That's the really hard part.
leaders have to call balls and strikes, and there's always a fuzzy zone.
So
Every leader needs to call, this is a ball, this is a strike. Based on that evaluation,
Philosophically, I agree with you guys. I'm just saying what you guys are talking about in education is extremely rare. Anthony, can you think of another district that?
no.
Can you do that? I think we were the only when we did the. I was here when you guys started for the principals, for the admins. You guys did some of that. Lyle would have been here.
Performance metric.
Performance metrics that tied into pay. My understanding when that happened was this was the first district that did that. I'm not sure what happened exactly. That's went away. I like philosophically. I'm just saying that's so foreign in our world. Like we'll work with it, but that's a foreign idea in our world. I'll work with it, but I don't know of another district in Iowa doing it. And we're talking 300 districts.
I don't know that,
I wanted to clear a little bit too, that when I'm saying this, I'm not throwing this at somebody for this year because they haven't been given criteria. Like this is something we have to put into place. If we're, I don't know if we could just throw it at people this year if they have not, I don't know.
Probably the proper forum is the goal setting
Yes.
for the superintendent.
And the fact that it's not done across Iowa is not conclusive. Perhaps it's evidentiary, right? Like perhaps it's, but just because we're the only one doing it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Perhaps we're being bold.
Yeah.
That's true. The other thing with the word average is then you are assuming somebody in that group is going to get less than average.
That's what I was asking.
When
Said-
perhaps it could be that nobody is performing at a less than average level.
It doesn't, average doesn't tell you how you distribute. It could be even distribution.
Which is why I asked what it means
That
in
would
this,
be
because
really unique.
I want to know how it's being distributed.
Everybody performed exactly the same.
Well, I'm not saying exactly the same, but if you're giving people above, it's got to take away from somewhere else in the group.
But that's how it is, like, okay, at Deere, wage guys are based on the union, because they're union. Salary guys, and women, sorry peeps, you have an evaluation, and you meet, and the group gets, this is how much money your group gets, right? And the raises then are doled out based on who did what, and that's just, am I crazy, or is that?
No, you are not crazy.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you are, but not on that point.
Keep in mind, we do, I know it seems, I know from all your perspectives, like this seems like outdated. Keep in mind, we've got how many teachers in this district, they all get the same thing.
But that's.
If I could change that, I would.
700 teachers,
But that's like
800,
That was one of the reasons I left.
We're talking about our admins, though. This is different. We're talking about admins. We're not talking about teachers right now.
They don't have the same leverage of influence
And there is no union, like this is different.
on a whole
group of people.
And the admins have different
That's not saying that-
safeguards as well.
That's not
in place,
saying they're not
correct?
important now. All I'm saying, and the culture of the district, it's the
Culturally.
it's the administrators that determine that.
Can I add a comment?
Yes.
15 years of doing this, we've been through about 3 waves. One of them were for this group, admin support, which we tried to set up a salary schedule,
Okay.
saying that no matter what position you had, everybody knows their job within 3 to 5 years. They should get paid the same. If you had exemplary performance, you could jump over into a couple of bonus lanes. We followed that for 3 or 4 years. The last round that we really tried to address this was the strategic plan, and there was 100 measurements, all in different, and I'm not exaggerating. There was 100 things that we scored. But at that time, it was agreed that we do it as a group of administrators. Because if we, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way it was set up. That all these DLT meetings, where are we at on our scores, where are we at on our measurements, how are we coming to the end of the year? And there was a lot of different opinions about that as well. There isn't a perfect salary schedule practice,
Yeah.
period. Because it's, as soon as it's not measured by how many widgets you do, it's subjective.
Right.
And now it's your opinion and all of those things. But that's what management is, and that's why Jared sits in the top seat, and he is evaluating this to say, how do I handle my team? It would have not been possible to create or recreate a schedule that everybody understood and agreed on and tried to push it through in a short period of time. That strategic plan measurement fell apart because the admin and the board decided it's too much money going out to people with all the measurements, and it got reduced down to paying the superintendent under those measurements.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a major factor. Everybody else fell off of that. I know this because I designed all of it. How it was measured, how we paid, how it got paid out. So what I'm saying is, yes, we went through about 3 different waves, and all of your points are right on. But a lot of them are coming from your own worlds, which Jared is saying, that's usually not how schools work, but they do. I agree, admin has a different level of scrutiny because there's so few of us, and you know us because you're in contact. That's why teachers have a salary schedule. How would you argue who was the best teacher or not?
Right.
That's why it's always been experience and degree. Doesn't fit everybody, but it's the best system that's lasted for so long.
What do they say about democracy? It's
But if you're not going to differentiate at all, then let's just pay every administrator the same. Every administrator.
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Then we might not have administrators.
But that's, when you're saying
Depends on what salary point you pay.
everybody's doing their job,
No,
okay.
Lyle, I think you're misunderstanding the whole point. Your point is valid, that people achieve at different levels. But to say pay everybody the same, we don't have the same responsibilities. That wouldn't make any sense. Some places it might fit.
What is your feeling, Lauren?
If everybody's doing their job
But what is your
equally
feeling of doing the percentage increases the same for everybody? Out of all the ways you've seen?
That's the way it's been done here most of the time, and the average, what that meant was when the superintendent sat down and looked at the administrative group, they would say, okay, I'm going to average it out at 3.5. But I know there's somebody here that when we hired, we didn't give them as much money as their job deserved. So I want to bump them up, and they've done some amazing things. Those things have happened every year.
I think we're asking for that to be able to happen, but with criteria.
Yeah, I just
instead of being
don't think the
willy-nilly.
timing right now is...
And I don't mean for this
like,
year.
You're right, I agree with that. I'm just saying, new administrators need to understand how everything works, what their expectations are, and the time to do that. I mean, I think you all know that Jared meets with everybody all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody else has done that. No one. Not in 15 years. So if there's anybody that knows the team he's working with, he's got that experience.
So Michael, are you in support of this idea? What are your thoughts?
At this time, and in the situation that we're in, yes, I think it's the best way we can do it. But yes, I mean, I think it's going to present itself of saying, Jared's got some time under his belt, we've got more things going on, more expectations, and okay, I see somebody doing this. Or I see somebody that is not right where I want them to be. Then he starts making those subjective.
The other thing about across the board is that it's dependent on not so much the performance in any given category of jobs, but also the negotiating skill of the new hire. So if they negotiate a really high skill, every year they get a percentage and it differentiates them from their peers because it's based on percentage. I mean, you can, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think some sort of performance base after, several years.
I think with a couple thoughts, if you don't mind.
Let me go first. Who does this all include? Is this, who does this all include?
It's all administrators, principals, assistant principals, central office administrators, and DLT, everyone who has that administrator classification. Then the other group is our admin support. So that's Pam. Most other people that work in this building that are not administrators, and there's some positions scattered throughout the district that also fit into this admin support category. Most, all of them would be in positions that are not in unions. So
How many would that be? Just a number?
50, 100, 150.
There's 100 admin support.
100 admin support. And how many admin?
45, that's kind of what I was.
Okay.
Do you have a number for that, Jared? How many principals, assistant principals total? I didn't total that, but I've always thought 40, 45.
Okay.
Michael, are you financially comfortable with this number?
Yeah.
Okay.
he recommended it to us.
What's the money I'm going to talk to that man?
So just curious, how does that 3.24 compare against other UENs this year?
I don't know about the other UENs, although I'll say the last couple of years for administrators and teachers at a lot of districts has been between 3 and 4%.
Okay. Yeah. So about plus the adjustment.
This is the same as what we did for the teachers, right?
Yep.
It's the same percent.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
2 quick thoughts, real quick. It's becoming much more just the thought of negotiating salary when you come in, it's becoming much more of an employee-driven market right now. Like, the amount of applicants is drying up. I think we're going to see more and more people who have the ability to negotiate, because we don't have any, a lot of times we have one strong candidate, nobody else behind them. Like, they can drive the market right now. I just want to give you a heads up. I mean, it's going to be.
You were a good negotiator when we got you, so yeah, we know.
Well, and everybody has access to data too. Everybody has access to data,
I think that it's appropriate.
Yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing, I got all of you guys here, and we'll talk more on my evaluation, but I've heard a couple of times, like, we haven't evaluated the DLT, and I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I meet with them weekly, 30 to 45 minutes every single week. I've got 20, 30 pages of notes from those meetings.
That's the kind of stuff I guess.
So when people say, like, you're not evaluating, I would push back, and I appreciate Michael bringing that up, because I don't think
anyone said that.
I think I've heard that a couple times, so
They asked if he.
I think there's confusion over what evaluation means. A lot of times you think it's just that end of the year evaluation document. That's not the case. That is the ending conversation you have, which means very little in the big scheme of things. Now, if somebody's underperforming, then absolutely put something in that document. That's why we do the one-on-ones weekly, because we're touching base. What's your status? What are you working on? Here's your action steps. What are you concerned with? And that's actually spread throughout our district. And I'm not saying it may have been going on before, but there's a lot of people doing the same thing. So I think we need to change our frame of mind a little bit in terms of what the evaluation means, and we can talk more. But Michael, I appreciate bringing that up, because I've heard that a couple times, and I'm like, it's not the case. So we'll talk more, but I want to be clear, like, each conversation every week is part of the evaluation process. Are they meeting? Are they doing the action steps they agreed upon? Are there issues? What are the issues? What are we working on? So we'll come back to that more, but I just heard that a little bit and just wanted to clarify that. So.
Quick question on that. So you have spent tons of time with these people and evaluating them. Would it take so much more time then to, and I understand that the number of people that there are, would it take so much more time then to do this on a per person basis of deciding, or what was your rationale here for going to a flat 3 point? Thank you.
2-4. Well, the rationale was, like Michael said, like, it's way too late in the game to, like, come up with a system at this point. What gets tricky is it becomes very cut and dried when somebody's on a plan of assistance. Absolutely. What Anthony and I are finding is, beyond the plan of assistance, everything else was very arbitrary. And the admins did not understand how come I'm not getting the 4%. I'm getting 3%, 2%, 1%. We've had numerous, and again, I'm being very careful here because I respect previous leadership, but we've had a lot of people like, we do not understand why we did not. I mean, they truly, and these are people that we trust. So I guess because you meet with them so often, absolutely, we could probably put them in different places on that chart we talked about. But then even within that, like, how do you say, okay, if they've got this many check marks on this line, it's 3%. That many, it's 2%, you know. So I'm open, to be clear, like, I am very much like a merit-based decision-making as opposed to political-based. So, like, what do the merits say? We can get to that point. It's something that's a little novel to me, so we got to work through it, but we can certainly look at that. What's cut and dried is the plan of assistance. Absolutely.
How do you think that this will affect morale among the administrator class? What's your prediction
If delivered well, it would be okay. I do think there's probably there's full transparency. I think there's probably a little bit of mistrust because of the way it's been done before.
So you think this will be good for morale?
Mm-hmm. Previous mistrust, which I still, and again, I'm not trying to take, but that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing is, Anthony, I look at, like, and Michael's got it too, but, like, people at different points, they don't understand why. And so when you do that without explaining the process, people lose trust.
So what you're saying is that they would have, I think what Janelle was trying, is that people would be happy with doing it this way.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Are you doing it
this way with, well, is that going to make our admins and admin support feel validated?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if moving forward we go to a little bit more of a tiered system, again, any change, as long as you explain it up front and have clear, like, protocols, it's not they can understand it. We can deliver that message.
Did you have that conversation with them?
We have not.
Do they have any expectation of what this is going to look like?
They don't, but I don't think they would have in past years either, because the anecdotal data we get is I got less and no one told me why.
And also, I mean, this reduces some conflict on you for this first year. You don't have to make decisions that are going to make people angry or that have been done that way in the past, and you're seeing the blowback from that.
I agree. I think this is, like Michael said, like, I mean, the three of us have met on this 3 times, and we have had lengthy conversation about what this should look like. So the 3 of us are in unison. I agree. It's the best at this point.
Okay. Okay. We'll go ahead and go for a vote. So all in favor for this superintendent recommendation? Aye. All opposed?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain also.
So what's the vote then? There's 6 of us, 4 and 2 abstention?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much for that discussion. Appreciate it. More to come. All right. Superintendent notes.
Yeah,
That's the end of it.
Yeah, we got some important dates we're going to talk about. It's a busy week. We got graduations tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. A couple things from last week. Retirement ceremony was really cool. Like, I just think I applaud the people that put the work into that. Like, you always want to make, when people leave the district, you want to make sure, you know, when they retire, you want to make sure it's special. And I thought we did a good job of that. So thank you to everybody involved with that. I went to Project Search graduation last week, which was, I think we had 4 students who graduated from that. It's another post-secondary option for our kids out at Allen College, and it was really cool. So great project, or great program that we have with those guys. And then last but not least, again, I love that we're doing some things in the community. Had a chance to see East High's band at the amphitheater last week. And it's just cool. Like, I just love that we're creating those experiences for our kids to, like, put on performances in other places outside the normal classroom walls. So very cool to see that over there.
That's it. All right. Thank you. I'm going to start with Stacy at this end.
Well, there's like a million things I could say, but I'm really tired, and I think we all are. So I'm just going to say thank you to everybody who participated tonight and everything we did, and to everyone sitting up here who helped with these conversations. So
thank you. Jesse?
So I'm going to give my appreciation to the group who come and spoke tonight. You know, they had, you know, a very important message that's, you know, to us and the community. As far as the element of school safety itself, I'm going to continue my advocacy for SROs in each of our facilities, our sites. Right now, I feel like we are understaffed at our elementaries, and we need to, if we're going to spend extra money in the community, I think the community would be supportive of giving that extra protection in those buildings. So, you know, instead of having one that has to drive for another facility out there. So,
thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Esther?
Just want to talk briefly, real quick, about the importance of while we're up here doing what we do, the connection to the community. We're all elected by our community, and I think the community, including the city of Waterloo, and the connection to the schools and the partnership needs to be noted. So we're coming to the end of the 22-23 school year, and tomorrow, pretty exciting for me, I'll get to hand a diploma to my son, so kind of excited about that. I always thought, I didn't think that I would do it. I would stand in the crowd and be a parent, just taking in from that perspective. But I'm getting kind of excited about it.
You should.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of excited, so I'm looking forward to that. So congratulations to all the graduates, East, West, and Expo.
Thank you. Janelle?
As I always do, quick shout out to the band programs. Everybody else is winding down, but these guys have another concert. They have to get ready to play at commencement, and they're also getting ready for the My Waterloo Days parade. So they're finishing the year strong. I happened to hear from a Bunger parent that the Bunger concert went really well, and it looks like that program is really improving. So keep going, band directors. Keep going, orchestra directors. Keep going, choir directors. Keep going, theater directors.
Thank you. Lyle?
Yeah, regarding the Be Smart, I think, the schools are the last line of defense, and they can put some things in place, which is the SROs or the metal detectors or whatever. But we need to think, and we need to do that, and they're right on target. I agree with, making guns less available. But really, school shooters almost always come from the school that they are attending or did attend, but they lost hope somewhere. I'm going to get on my hope soapbox again. Hope and vision. They lost that. But they're not the only ones that lost that. I think I mentioned last time, for every kid killed in school by a shooter, 70 commit suicide. Now, half of them apparently commit suicide by guns, but half don't. So we need to separate the symptoms from the root cause. The root cause is lack of hope and vision. And that's why we owe it to our kids every single day to give them hope and vision for the future. The whole negative national narrative about whatever is irrelevant. I say, well, we need to know that tonight. No, you don't. Looking at the past and developing policy, that's for adults. Kids should not be burdened with any of that. They should look to the future. They should see opportunities. That's what we should teach them every day, that they can be somebody and will be somebody. And whatever's going on in schools, and I don't know, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but anything that's negative, especially if it's a reflection of the national narrative, we're doing our kids our disservice, because too many are losing hope and don't have the vision for the future. They think the world's going to end before they grow up. They think they live in a bad country. Too much negativism. So the root cause is lack of hope and vision. The last line of defense is implementing the restrictions of getting the weapons in school. But that's really much in terms of lives. That's really the least costly in terms of lives. It's the kids' suicides by gun and by other means. So that's my point on that.
Thank you, Lyle. All right, so I will just say that I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I appreciate Ockley's presentation about the marketing and communication that that team have been doing, and those three words: captivate, influence, transform. I appreciate our district doing that, and so as we come to a close quickly to the 2023 school year, continue doing what you're doing. Finish strong, everyone. As it was mentioned, we do have graduation this week, starting tomorrow, with East High at McLeod at 6 p.m. Expo, May 24th, 6 p.m., and May 25th, West High at McLeod Center. Did I say that right? May 24th, Expo at Expo, excuse me. Thank you. Yes, Expo is at Expo. So, our next board meeting will be June 12th at 5 p.m. in this building. And with that said, can I get a motion to close?
So move.
All right. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry. Motion. Yeah. Thank you. Aye. Thank you.